What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now today I've got for you some of the most interesting, relaxing Reddit stories to fall asleep to. This is the fourth episode of this series, which you guys are absolutely loving. Each of the previous ones has gone crazy viral, so thank you so much for the support. Let's get into part 4. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing if you do go on to enjoy this. Let's go. My husband, a 32-year-old male, and his friends have a nickname for me, a 35-year-old woman, in their group chats. He won't tell me what it means. This happened a couple of days ago. My phone died right as I was texting my mum about something rather important, so my husband let me use his. As I was typing, a banner popped up with a text from one of his friends to their group chats, saying to the effect of, "Hey, husband, do you and ST still want to do the Halloween plan we talked about?" So of course, I'm like, who is ST? Those are not my initials. I briefly looked at the chat. A few messages up, I was at least able to confirm that ST was me, in context of my husband mentioning a specific thing I'd done that day. Like I said, ST is not an abbreviation of my name or any name I would go by. None of our friends call me by anything other than my real name, so I was confused. I showed him the chat and I asked him what it stood for. He looked suddenly really flustered. He grabbed his phone back and said, it's nothing, just a nickname." Okay, well, what's it stand for? He literally wouldn't tell me. He just kept saying, "Don't worry about it." Well, is there some reason I would need to worry? I wouldn't be worrying if he just explained what it meant. I was a little put off by this, to find out all his friends are calling me something I don't even know about. I told him even if it's just some dumb joke, at least tell me. The way he was clamming up just makes it look kind of weird, but he still refused to tell me. This entire back and forth was maybe a minute or two. Then he suddenly goes, "Okay, fine, it's super terrific. Look, I can't tell if I'm being crazy, but I just don't fully buy that. If that's all it was, why not say so the first time I asked? I asked like 3 or 4 times for him to tell me what it stood for. Why keep avoiding it?" On the other hand, I know this makes me look like a really high-strung, paranoid person to be suspicious when it could so easily be what he said. I don't want to accuse him of lying with no proof and over something so stupid. This is still bugging me a little. I just want to know if I'm being insane to have an inkling of doubt about it standing for super terrific. Do you think he was telling the truth? Would it be ridiculous to bring it up again at this point? Now guys, don't worry, all is about to be revealed in this story, as OP did post an update just a week later. But before I get into that, get in the comments down below. What do you think ST really stands for? So here is that update just a week later. I posted this last week, and well, not a happy ending. I ended up getting a text from one of my husband's female friends in his group chat the day after I posted her. It turned out that right after I asked him about the nickname, he told all of them I'd seen it and to stop calling me that. She sent me a screenshot of his message, which reads verbatim, "Lol, oh my god, she just saw that. I'm so screwed, hahaha." But seriously, don't send that anymore. I'm gonna end up in the doghouse, and then tears of laughter emoji. The female friend who reached out is a new addition to the group, as of a couple of months ago. She's a friend of the girl that one of his guy friends is dating. I'd met her a couple of times on group outings and liked her. She told me she was uncomfortable once she caught on that ST was me, and they were using that behind my back. Then when she was told what it stood for, after my husband's message, she thought to contact me in case I didn't know about it. I'm extremely grateful for this. Now, the part everyone wanted to know. A lot of you thought it was sugar tits. I really wish. That would be cute and funny. Nope, not my luck. Instead, it stands for sausage tits. Yeah, that's what my husband and his gaggle of mental 12-year-olds refer to me as. I don't even know how or why it started. I cannot fathom the thought that my husband could have described my boobs in detail to all his friends, and then they thought it sounded hilarious enough to make a nickname out of. I literally don't even know what to feel. I haven't been more humiliated in my life than I have been right now. I don't know what to do about him. He apologized, but because it's just a joke to him, he doesn't seem to get or care how I feel. He apologized sincerely, and he promised he'd never call me that again or let any of his friends. But why did he ever do it in the first place? It's not a complimentary nickname that you wouldn't foresee a person not liking, right? Isn't it obvious that it's mean-spirited, or am I crazy to assume so? Is there some way I'm just not able to see where it's not actually as bad as I feel it is? Anyway, that's about it. I don't know what to do. We're sleeping in separate rooms because I can't bear to be near him or have him see me. I never want him to see me naked again. I'm trying to figure out if my need for space is temporary or permanent. If it's permanent, then I'll be pursuing divorce. I just thought so highly of him. I never could have imagined he'd view me like this behind my back. It's like if he was to gain weight and I encouraged all my friends to start calling him fat ass or beer belly behind his back. What other possible reason to do that is there other than contempt? I said this, but he insists it doesn't have any deeper meaning and it's just bad humor. Whatever, time to put the kiddos to bed while he's typing away at his phone on the other side of the room. See, the issue I'm realizing is now there will always be a fear in my mind that he's saying nasty things about me to who knows who. So there's the update. Sausage Tits signing out. Yeah, you've just hit the nail on the head there, OP. How are you ever gonna trust this man again? Anytime, just like you're saying, that you see him on his cell phone typing away, you're gonna automatically think, based on past experiences, that he's chatting absolute rubbish about you behind your back again. And it really doesn't matter if he sees it as just a silly nickname. It's clearly very derogatory. There must be a reason why they've come to that sort of nickname. It can't be for no reason, right? So look, it's something that's going to be going over and over in your head for a long time now. And to be fair, not knowing your situation, I would honestly say that I think this probably will end up in divorce. I mean, based on the apology alone, guys, do you not think? Like, he didn't even seem to care that much that you were that upset. To me, it felt as if he was just more sorry that he got caught. And also that message in the group chat, like, oh my God, guys, lol, we've been found out, cry laughing emoji, other than saying, my wife finds this really disrespectful, I've made a big mistake, stop. Like, to me, it just shows what sort of person he is. Let me know if you disagree, but I think this one is not going to end well. Am I the butthole for giving my friend first aid on a sensitive area? This happened the other day. I am a 23-year-old man, and I was at a pool party at my best friend Greg's house. There was also a slip and slide set up, and people were using it. My friend Amy used it and screamed. The whole party turns to her and she's clutching her breast and there's blood just pouring out of her hand. She'd slid over a rock and cut herself. I'm in nursing school, so I run over to her and ask to see the cuts. She pulls her hand away and I see that it doesn't look too serious, but it definitely needs attention. I turn to Greg and ask him if he has a first aid kit, and he says yes, in the bathroom inside the house. So I walk Amy into the house and grab the first aid kit. I pause for a second and ask her if she's okay with me helping her with this, or if she wants to do it herself because of where the cut is. And she says, no, I trust you and I want your help. So we go into the bathroom and wash out the cuts. I look at it more closely to make sure it isn't serious. I put some Neosporin on it and bandage it up nicely. Amy thanks me and we go back outside. A couple of women immediately come up to Amy and ask if she's okay. And one of them, Sarah, gives me a dirty look and they kinda lead her away. I go back to where I was sitting and Greg sits next to me and says, some people were talking rubbish out here. I did my best to defend you, but I figured you should know that they were talking trash about you helping Amy. I asked him what he meant, and he said that Sarah was saying it was creepy how I sprung into action when I saw an opportunity to play with a boob, and a few of the other women and one guy agreed and were making fun of me. I was pretty upset about that, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I just ignored it for the time being. Later that day though, I was sitting by the fire pit and Sarah was sitting across from me and nobody else was around the area, so I asked her why she was making fun of me for helping Amy. She said, I guess that was a little mean of me, I'm sorry that I did that. But I just thought it was kind of weird how you saw her boob was hurt and you ran up to her and insisted to help. I know you're in nursing school, but I think you should have let a girl handle it. We all know first aid too. I thanked her for her apology, and I don't like confrontation. So I just said, alright, I guess I'll keep that in mind from now on. Alright then guys, your time to shine again. Get that in the comments. Was this lad in the right or the wrong? I want to hear your thoughts. Update incoming. I stepped away to go to work, and this post blew up. Thank you for all your judgments. I think I did the right thing by helping her in this situation, and Sarah was really kind of a dog here. Also, I realized that Amy might not know they were talking trash about me, so I'm going to call or text her and inform her about this. Update. I called Amy and I asked her how the cut was healing. She said it was healing well and she was keeping an eye on it. Then I asked her if she knew about the things Sarah and the others said about me and what Sarah said at the fire pits. Amy had no idea. She said that the other women were asking her if she was okay and what happened and all that, but she assumed they were worried about the injury. not my helping her. And Amy was absolutely fuming and went to the friend group chat and told the people that were talking trash a new butthole, especially Sarah. Sarah and the others apologized to me in the group chat, but Amy kept going and said I shouldn't accept their apologies because they sat back and talked trash about the one person who stepped up and helped her. Amy also asked Greg not to invite Sarah to the next pool party, and Greg readily agreed. A few of the others tried to say that was too far, but Amy just told them to shut the frick up and do something next time someone's hurt, instead of sitting on their butt and insulting me. And there you go, straight from the horse's mouth herself. Not that I'm calling Amy a horse, I have no idea what she looks like. She could be very beautiful. She also could be a dog or a horse, who knows? That's not important. The fact of the matter is that at the time Amy said it was fine, and she's now said it was fine. So it was fine the whole time. And yeah, I agree with her. Why are you getting trashed on for being the one person that actually helped her out? Everyone else just sat back and did nothing. You actually helped her. Who cares where the cut was? Am I the butthole for referring to my girlfriend as my wife when she asked me not to? I, a 45-year-old man, had been dating Jane, who was 48, fake name, for almost 3 years. We were engaged until I called it off. Jane has 4 kids, aged 6 to 21, and I realised getting married would cement them in my life, which I don't necessarily want. But I still wanted to be with Jane, and maybe I'd be able to actually like the kids. She accepted that I didn't want to get married, but asked that I don't refer to her as my wife anymore, since that was something I'd do while we were engaged. I didn't think she was serious, but every time I've called her my wife since then, she has corrected me, even in front of people. I think it's embarrassing to be in my 40s and say that I have a girlfriend. It sounds childish. Jane's oldest, her 21-year-old daughter, has said to me on several occasions that I should respect her mum's request, since she accepted that I didn't want to get married. She says I can't get the wife perks without actually committing to marriage. I take what her daughter says with a grain of salt, because although everyone seems to think she's an intelligent and mature young woman, I think she's a disrespectful child. My aunt is on my side and says Jane needs to grow up and accept that being 40-something with a boyfriend or a girlfriend is just sad. Pretty much everyone else sides with Jane though. Now guys, that is the end of the original post, and as you can imagine, all the commenters, as you're probably thinking right now, on Reddit all side with Jane. OP is clearly the butthole here. It's not that deep, just don't call her your wife when she doesn't want to be called that. However, that really isn't important, because what I'm about to show you is possibly the biggest twist I've ever seen on Reddit ever, and I'm not even saying that lightly. Just prepare yourselves for this. What I'm about to show you is genuinely mind-blowing and is something that I feel like should happen more on Reddit given the size of the platform, but it doesn't happen enough in my opinion. Anyway, that 21-year-old woman, Jane's daughter, finds the post and comments on it. It's unbelievable, it really is. Here we go. So here is that comment. When I first read this, I thought it sounded similar to my home situation. And after reading the replies, I can confirm it is in fact my home situation. I will be showing this to my mum when I get home. She's been on the edge of leaving you for months, and I hope this is enough to push her to finally do it. Oh my God. I also think it's funny how you haven't mentioned how every time she's tried to leave, you either start crying or guilt tripping, or how you sabotaged her disability application because if she got approved, you'd get less money. Boom. I know. Truly mind-blowing, guys. It just is genuinely amazing. I just love stuff like this. Anyway, now to carry on with the story. Unfortunately, OP, the dude, deleted all of his original posts and all his comments after this, probably due to embarrassment and being found out by his own, well, his partner's daughter. But to summarize what happened before he deleted everything, he replied to this comment. Actually, you know what? I'll get it up on screen right now. So the dude pretty much begs the 21-year-old not to tell her mother, and the daughter then reveals some other things that OP has done, such as sabotaging her mother's disability application so it didn't reduce his benefits, as we saw, and telling the whole family he knocked up the daughter. It was a bad joke. Unbelievable. Let's hear that story now. The whole story is that at Easter dinner with the whole family, the subject of periods came up, and I mentioned that I no longer got mine because of my birth control. My aunt and uncle came in at the end of the conversation and didn't hear the part about birth control. All they heard was that I don't get my period. My aunt was like, "Oh my God, are you pregnant?" Which is a fair assumption, as I'd been in a long-term relationship for 6.5 years. Before I could say anything, he, my mum's boyfriend, blurts out, "Yeah, she is, and it's mine." The room was silent and everyone looked disgusted, and my aunt called him a sick idiot. My mum was fuming and gave him trash for it. I had a conversation with him saying how it made me uncomfortable, and he just said over and over that he'd been smoking and drinking and wasn't thinking. So as you can see, this dude is an absolute wrong'un. But back to the original story now. The daughter gave another update just 2 hours later. I didn't even notice, but wow, a lot of people are saying they think this is fake, which I think I'd question too if it wasn't literally happening to me. By the way, my mum has been shown everything. She asked me to take my brothers on a walk while she confronts him, which is what I'm doing now, so update soon hopefully. And then finally we got a concluding post from the daughter. Here is the most relevant part. When we came back, Bill was on his way out, crying still. I don't know where he's going and I don't care. I asked my mum what happened and she said that she told him she was done, that she and her kids had been disrespected for long enough and that this wasn't even the last straw. The last straw went long ago. She told him to get out and he could return for his things, and only his things. Fun fact, he likes to steal people's stuff, and then when confronted about it, he claims it belonged to his deceased mother, while her dad and brother were there. Her next step is to talk to the property manager and have him taken off the lease, which she's doing today, and to have the locks changed. After he gets his things, she says she's cutting all contact, which I hope is true. I'm so glad she was able to finally tell him off, and that she's planned for her dad and brother to be here when he comes for his things. I think having that extra support will help her to not fall for his manipulation again. Thank you to everyone who gave messages of support for my mother. I've shown her a few and will show her more when she's up for it. She and I both appreciate it very much. And there we go. That concludes the absolute roller coaster of a Reddit story. First of all, I hope that was simple enough to follow. I know it kind of jumped around, but I wanted to show you lot it because it was just amazing. I do think to myself, surely, given that Reddit is one of the biggest websites there is, why is there not more people finding stories or posts from family members or people they know like this? So, hey, we got one of those finally. And I loved it. To briefly summarize, in case you guys couldn't follow exactly what was going on, that guy, the weird dude, made a post on r/AmITheButthole trying to work out if he was in the wrong or not for calling his partner his wife when she wasn't. And then her daughter found that, thought to herself, this looks very familiar to my situation. Oh wait, it is. That is actually my mum's partner who is on Reddit right now making this post. Then gave loads of context to everyone else who was calling him a butthole anyway, because he clearly was, showing how much more of a butthole he actually is, leading eventually to her mum getting rid of him. A brilliant story. Really hope you enjoyed it. He doesn't know any better. My parents, my dad is 54 and mum is 52, are angry with me for not ignoring my older brother's predatory behavior. Just a little context first about my older brother and the situation at hand. My brother is 32 years old. He's never had a job, dropped out of community college after 2 semesters for never doing his assignments. He's lived with my parents his entire life. He sleeps all day and stays up all night playing video games and watching Korn. Both my brother and I am a 27-year-old man, are diagnosed autistic and present our symptoms similarly. But I've been working since I was 17, got my driver's license at 17, bought my first car at 24, and started college in 2019. My parents constantly use my brother's autism as an excuse for his appalling behavior, even though we're both on the spectrum. In November of 2020, I moved back in with my parents because I left an abusive relationship and had chronic health issues. I met my current girlfriend, who is 23, in mid-2021, and in early 2022, she had some extenuating circumstances where my family agreed to let her live with us. My brother was immediately pleased with this development, but just as quickly behaved inappropriately. It started off with him creepily staring anytime my girlfriend and I kissed, and progressed to him following my girlfriend into the bathroom anytime he saw her go in there for a shower, until he figured out she always locked the door because of him. And the straw that broke the camel's back was him trying to come into our bedroom uninvited and without knocking at 3 in the morning while we slept. Every time he behaved inappropriately, we mentioned it to my parents, but all that really happened were excuses made for him because he's autistic, and a brief conversation with him about not doing those things again, and then him still doing whatever he wanted. Anyway, after the bedroom incidents, they kicked my girlfriend out, making her homeless for a brief period of time because she had a PTSD panic attack since my brother made her feel unsafe. As a result of this, my girlfriend and I got an apartment together, and I moved out too because I didn't want to be in the same house as my brother. I was upset with the way my girlfriend was treated, and I wasn't willing to break up with her, which my parents wanted me to do. I had a calm conversation with my parents explaining why I was moving out, where I explained it's their house, so they are more than entitled to make the rules concerning their own home. However, I was not going to continue living somewhere that my girlfriend wasn't welcome and where my brother's predatory behavior was condoned. At first, they told me they love me, that they're sorry they ever made me feel that way, and they want me to keep a key to the house because I'm always welcome over, and that if I ever needed to move back in, I could. Several days later, I went over to pick up some more of my things, only to find that my parents had changed the locks on the door. Later that same week, they tell me they're angry with me for being ungrateful, saying I hate them, and calling them bad parents, none of which I ever said. They went on to tell me that they didn't want to speak to me for a week because they were upset, needed time to process, and because they thought I needed to feel what it was like to be cut out of the family. I respected their wishes, and later my parents agreed to family therapy, which they quickly backed out of because they were only willing to do it over a 3-way video call, and my therapist's website wasn't able to do that. I'm not sure why, but my therapist said it wasn't doable. At which point, I told my parents I would be willing to attend family therapy with a therapist of their choice who could do the 3-way video call, but that's yet to happen. That same Sunday, my parents invited me over for dinner, which I thought went well, only to find they would continue to dodge my calls and leave my texts on read after that night. They eventually contacted me and told me to stop using their house as storage and pick up my things, despite requesting that I stay away for a week. So my girlfriend and I go over to pick up the rest of our stuff, which was awkward but quick. Later that day, I got a text from my mum wishing me luck at college, but my parents still aren't willing to talk about the issues that led to me moving out, or even to come over to see our new apartment after being invited over, because, despite the circumstances, I still love them and want a relationship with them, since this type of behavior is highly uncharacteristic of them. Understandably, my girlfriend isn't fond of them, but told me she doesn't mind me inviting my parents over because it's important to her that I have a relationship with them for the sake of my mental well-being. Has anyone else ever dealt with a situation similar to this? If so, how did you deal with it? Now guys, I'm not sure what's weirder, the fact that your brother thinks he can get away with doing all this, or the fact that your parents let him. It's just very, very strange. This on top of the fact that your parents kicked your girlfriend out of their house because she had PTSD because of your brother. Yeah, your family's very odd is all I can say. I mean, it's easy for me to say as someone who hasn't dealt with any of this or anything remotely close to this, but I would honestly recommend cutting your losses, starting your own family, going to be with your girlfriend, and just kind of forgetting your family exists. You can still love them, but from afar. They're mental. Entitled mum chastised my 4-year-old for snacking. I had my kiddo at the park after picking her up from daycare. I usually have her there from about 5:10 to 6:30ish when we head home for dinner, bath, bedtime routine. I always bring a snack because she's absolutely starving by then. But we find if she eats dinner too early, she gets hungry again at bedtime. So she has a snack at the park, then a late dinner. It works for us, and it's never been a problem until tonight. So I'm sitting on a bench minding my own. Kiddo is running amok. Few other kids are there, but it's usually pretty scarce at this hour. My kiddo comes over asking for a snack, and I take out a little bento box with a couple of cucumbers and carrot sticks, dip, and a strawberry. Literally one fat little strawberry. Kiddo takes the snacks and sits down on the ground. This other kid, about her age, was lurking and staring, as little kids do. Then took off to his mum sitting on another bench nearby. I didn't hear him, but obviously it went along the lines of, "Mom, I'm hungry," and then turns and points to us. This woman gets up and while marching over, yells "no" while pointing to my kid in a ruder tone of voice than I would use with my actual dog. My kid, sitting there with a half-eaten strawberry in her hands, looks over and freezes as commanded. And as I'm about to be like, "What the F?" the entitled mum says, "You cannot bring snacks unless you plan to share," as she stops and stands in front of us. I start telling her, pretty politely considering the circumstances, to go ahead and get screwed, while motioning to Kiddo that she's okay to keep eating. Kiddo does, and as she slowly dips the strawberry back in the veggie dip, while watching the entitled mum argue with me, and this grown-ass woman just loses her mind completely. Borderline yelling at my kid about her horrible manners, ironically. Her germs, double-dipping her strawberry was disgusting, now her kid can't have any strawberries or dip. Spoiler, they weren't regardless, etc. I told the entitled mum to get lost and stop talking to my kid like that. It's her snack, but I ended up having to pack up my kid and take her home because she was obviously insane and I didn't feel safe there. It turns out Kiddo is a champ and was totally fine with being yelled at by a crazy entitled mum, but she was not very okay with having to leave. Clearly an epic meltdown ensued, while the entitled mum smugly stared me down and, believe it or not, continued to complain. I'm so angry, and I wanted so badly to stab a carrot in her eye, but alas, one of us had to be an adult. I hate that right now I feel like we can never go to that park again. I'm so angry. Nah, you can't let one woman stop you enjoying the park with your kid. If she comes over again and does the same thing again, just call the police or something. It's harassment, innit? I know it's a bit of a fast step to take, but you want to be there and you want to be able to enjoy the time with your kid at a park. One woman can't ruin that for you. Don't let her. You'll be okay. And as for double dipping a strawberry, by the way, I've looked at the rules. There is nothing to say that you can't do that, and it's something I would do myself. So that is just ludicrous. Parents who co-signed on first home don't want to sell. Pretty much self-explanatory. In 2018, my parents helped co-sign for a mortgage and ownership of a home, and also helped out with the down payments. My fiance and I at the time were extremely grateful and still are. We're now married, and my parents are the reason we were able to obtain a home in this crazy market. They mentioned many times that if we ever wanted to sell the home, they'd be more than happy to help us relocate, and that the down payment was a gift. All parents who are capable of helping their children in this way should do the same. 4 years go by, and now my wife, who is 31, and myself, 26, are looking to relocate cross-country with our 18-month-old son to find a more sustainable way of living. We've paid every mortgage payment and all other bills associated with the home. My wife is a skilled PL, and I recently obtained professional engineering status, so finding new work should not be an issue. Since my parents co-signed at 0.05% each, I own 99.9%, they are required to sign documents to list the home, of which they are both refusing to do so. They feel that we are going to cash out from the appreciation of our home and simply squander it all. I don't understand where they're getting this from, as my wife and I have always been very frugal and just want to set our son up for success in the long run. We're looking to sell and immediately purchase a new home, hopefully with a lower mortgage, as well as give them back their down payment with interest. Am I being a spoiled son, and should I just let this dream of moving cross-country go, or should I fight for this? Truthfully, I never asked for help with the mortgage. My wife and I were looking for homes within our budget, but my parents wanted us to have a nicer home. I graciously accepted the offer, but now I'm feeling like a fool, as I didn't know it came with strings attached. Mate, there's no way you're a fool. How could you ever know there were strings attached when your parents explicitly told you there were no strings attached? Like, come on, you can't predict that. It's just very unlucky and totally selfish from them. But honest, I don't really get it. They're stunting your life for no reason. Do they just not trust you as an individual? You've said what you're going to do with the money. You've even offered to repay them the entire down payment with interest. Like, that's nuts. Why would they not just accept that? It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, looking through the comments here, it seems that you can do something called a forced sale. When joint owners cannot agree on what to do with the property, sale of the property can be forced by the courts. You need a lawyer to do this though. So I guess that's the way to go down. A bit messy, isn't it? Your own parents doing this to you. But hey, if you have to get involved with lawyers, you got to do it. Now moving on to our final story of today's episode. Now a little bit of context is required with this one. Parents let my brother steal from me until I got my aunt involved. Now, I've covered quite a few of this person's entitled parents posts in the past, and they are pretty mental. Rather than going back over everything that's happened, I'm going to leave a link in the description to the most suitable episode which shows you what this guy has had to go through in his entire life. But to sum up very briefly, pretty much his parents massively favor his brother over him to an unbelievable extent. Anyway, let's get into the story. Back when I was still a kid, it was very hard for anything to be exclusively mine. And as my brother got older, he craved money for things above all else. He and I both got allowances, equal allowances, so that was sort of fair. I say sort of because he didn't have to do chores for his while I did. But that's in the past now because my brother is now having to do all those chores for nothing. My brother always wanted more money though, whether he spent it or not. He loved having new things, but sometimes he would save the money instead, which is odd because you'd think him the kind of kid who would splurge his savings on the first thing he wants. My brother and I both got allowances of about $25 per month, and I was pretty thankful for it. I usually save most of mine, but my brother always wanted more. One day as a teenager, I came home to find that my room had been ransacked, and the only thing gone was my money. I'd hidden it to try and keep it from my brother, because, well, obvious reasons if you guys know what my brother is like by now. And I thought I'd hidden it well, but he found it anyway. My mum was home when he did it too, and she acted like she didn't even notice. But there's no way that she couldn't have heard him tearing my room up. I called her out on that during the intervention, and she just cried and made excuses about my brother being special till other family members told her to shut up and own up to it. Now guys, if you haven't already heard the previous story, you're missing a tiny bit of information, but it's not, decisive. Again, if you do want to hear that first, link down below. My room was on the first floor right in the living room. My door was completely in view of the couch. And when I pointed this out back then, my mum just made the, "But he's special, he's not like you," excuse for my brother. I said I wanted the money back, and my mum just made more excuses. And my dad did too when he got home later. So yeah, excuses then and now. Back then, I did eventually get that money back because I refused to let it go. I heard my brother screaming as they took the money out of his piggy bank and gave it back to me. And they had the most disappointed looks on their faces, like I just robbed my brother, even though he'd robbed me. But they couldn't tell me off because I wasn't in the wrong and they knew it. I don't imagine many kids getting in the kind of situations where they are more right about something than their parents very often. A few months later, and the whole situation repeated. My brother ransacked my room again and stole the money I'd hidden again. But that time, my parents didn't want to do anything about it, and they basically said that they couldn't bear to see my brother so disappointed from taking his money. I reminded them that stolen money wasn't his money, and it was really trashy that they were just sitting back and letting it happen. My dad yelled at me to go to my room for saying that. So the next day, I rode my bike to my aunt's house and told her everything. She came back home with me and asked my parents if they'd really let my brother steal from me and done nothing about it. My mum just started whining that my brother has special needs and she didn't want to make him cry again. And my dad backed her up. My aunt just gave them both that narrow-eyed look and reminded them that they have 2 sons and my feelings matter too. And what they were doing was very wrong. It meant that my brother would never respect boundaries and would think that he could always get away with stealing when he gets older. My aunt asked me openly how much my brother took. I stated the number, which at the time was everything I had, save for the few bucks in my wallet. My aunt gave my parents an expectant glare. My parents tried making a few more excuses, but my aunt had a counter for each one. Finally, my parents went into my brother's room, and a moment later, my brother was screaming. My parents came back with all of the money my brother took and practically threw it at me for making my brother cry. My aunt then told them off for acting that way when I'd done nothing wrong, and they picked up all of the money they'd thrown at me and gave a pretty forced apology. My aunt said that she would be severely disappointed in them if they let this situation repeat, and before she left, my aunt offered for me to hide my money at her house in a lockbox she had. I took her up on that and started keeping my savings over there. Now, I don't want to intervene here, guys, but can you what am I reading? Your own parents are being scolded by your aunt, and your aunt is having to say to you, you can keep your money at my house where it will be safe from your brother and your parents. That is so mad. Anyway, my brother ended up ransacking my room 2 more times looking for money, but I was keeping every cent I had at my aunt's house. My parents actually asked me where I'd hidden it, and I refused to tell them. Then I asked why they wanted to know so badly anyway, and my dad instantly got defensive about it. My mum calmed him down and they didn't ask again. Since he couldn't find my money in my room, my brother figured I must have hidden it somewhere else. So he started tearing the house apart, one room after another. And who was made to clean up the mess? Why, yours truly, of course. My parents started to blame me for the whole situation. But when I asked how I was at fault for not letting my brother steal from me, their only counter was that my brother was special needs. I swear they'd used that line with me thousands of times. That was something else I heavily berated my parents for in the family intervention. The final straw came when my brother ransacked our parents' bedroom. My parents had a small suitcase safe that they kept some cash in, and my brother locked himself in their room, then took the whole safe and started bashing it around on stuff to try and get it to open because he couldn't find the keys. By the time my parents were able to get the door open by breaking it open, my brother had just destroyed the room, and he never even got the safe open. He just sat on the floor, clutching it and crying about the money inside. My dad was so angry that he turned red, and they actually started yelling at my brother and even grounded him. A very rare sight for me to see back then, indeed. Then my parents forced my brother to help clean up the mess. After that, my brother never ransacked mine or my parents' rooms looking for money again, but he would still go rooting around every time he had an idea of where my savings could be. So I started acting like I was giving hints by repeatedly going into certain places while he was watching. He ransacked the backyard shed, dug a bunch of holes in the yard and under the back porch, and even ransacked the attic. My parents really hit their breaking point with the attic and grounded my brother again. They never figured out I led him on either. My parents did eventually figure out that I was keeping my money at my aunt's house, and they didn't argue with my reasoning for doing it. But either my brother overheard or one of them spilled the beans to him, because the next time we visited my aunt, my brother tried to hunt for the money. But my aunt yelled at him to stop, and my brother just sat on the floor and cried. This happened a few times, and my aunt bluntly stated that she would press charges for any damages if my brother ransacked anything, and she also kept a digital camera on hand to record anything if need be. My parents heavily scolded my brother to stop looking for my money. It wasn't his, and he can't have it. Cue more screaming and crying that he wants it like a 3-year-old, even though he was 7 at the time. Then my brother said he didn't want to go to Auntie's house anymore, so my parents visited less. My aunt visited us a lot more than we visited her anyway. I was pretty much able to keep my money away from my brother until after I moved out, and he's never managed to steal cash from me again. His classmates at school were another story. He was caught looking through the backpacks of other kids many times, and he was forced to return stolen stuff, and then sent home where he'd cry to mum and dad, who then tried to have words with the school, who berated them for letting my brother think that what he was doing was okay. They had to teach my brother that it's not okay to go through other people's stuff, and I actually heard him say, "But I wanted what they had," a few times. This excuse got used again when my brother stole an envelope with birthday money from a cousin during their birthday party. He tried to stuff it in his shirt and walk out with it later, but the cousin noticed it was missing, and I suspected my brother right away and pointed everyone to him. He ended up crying and thrashing when my dad found the envelope hidden in his shirt. We left that party early. Again, guys, I implore you to watch another video or episode linked in the description below, and it will appear on the end screen in just a few seconds to hear more about this incredible family. Incredible is an interesting use of word there, but you know what I mean. It is actually good to hear, though, that finally, despite some scolding from your aunt that should never have had to happen, your parents do seem to be learning that your brother shouldn't be allowed to just steal from random people. And they seem to have stopped enabling his terrible behavior as much. I don't know, it's still questionable, but at least they're on the right path. As for OP, once again, I think I said this last time, but bro, just keep going on, mate. Like, your situation is truly terrible, so fair play for dealing with it. I mean, I don't think I'd be able to. I think I would have had to leave home and just leave the country probably. What a mess that this family is, I'm sorry to say, but you're a good lad. Fair play to you. Am I the butthole for wearing a tight dress despite my friend asking me not to? I am a 20-year-old woman, and me and 2 friends, both 22-year-old women, are currently on vacation. For the sake of the story, I will call them Libby and Kat. Libby, Kat and I all decided that while we were on vacation for 1 week, we would go clubbing as much as possible. All of my friends know that I have a feminine sense of style. My entire wardrobe consists of pink, miniskirts, dresses, heels, and lots of jewelry. Not once has this ever seemingly been a problem with my friends, at least none that was mentioned directly to me. When you go clubbing, most people tend to wear tight outfits, so my suitcase was packed with several outfits meant for clubbing. Last night, after spending our day by the pool, I started Googling clubbing places near us and broached the topic of starting our first night partying. All seemed excited, so we all headed up to our room to start getting ready. I was just about done with my makeup and hair when I grabbed the dress I was planning on wearing, and suddenly the mood felt extremely sour. For the sake of full clarity, it's a very short pink leather dress. Kat spoke up and mentioned that I should probably pick another outfit. I asked her why, and she said since we're all going together, none of us should try to outdo each other. I explained that I'm not trying to outdo anyone and I just liked this dress. Libby sided with Kat, saying that I was clearly trying to one-up the both of them and was acting like a pick-me. I told them I'm wearing the dress no matter what, and I was sure they would look just as, if not more beautiful than me in their outfits. They barely talked to me for the remainder of getting ready and split up from me the moment the Uber dropped us off. It's Tuesday and they're still being cold and short with me. I kind of want to go home, but I'm curious if I'm being an overdramatic butthole. So, am I the butthole? In my opinion, you're definitely not the butthole. You're on holiday and you can wear whatever you want. Obviously, I don't really understand your friend's point of view, and I don't really know why they're bringing this up now whilst you're on holiday when they haven't really done so in the past when you've been at home, going out clubbing normally. All I would say is if they're that insecure about what you're wearing, that says more about them than it does about you. But that's enough in my opinion, because there's actually an update to this story. Next up, OP added a little bit more once they got back from their holiday. I want to start with the statement that I am no longer friends with either Libby or Kat. After reading the comments under my original post, I realized how trashy what they did was, and that it put me in danger. I am seriously considering going home. I got up this morning, and when I went to get dressed after my shower, I found that several of my clothes had been vandalized. 2 of my tops have been torn, a skirt of mine is completely butchered, a couple of my dresses look like they went through a wood chipper, and a pair of my heels has toothpaste squirted into the base. Both of my friends are denying they did it. Honestly, I'm just beyond crushed that they did this to my clothing, and I don't even have the nerve to admit it. It genuinely makes me want to cry. The night after they vandalized my stuff, we went out to breakfast, and I let them know that since I am the only person whose name is checked in on the hotel, and my boyfriend paid for it, they both had 5 hours to pack and find another place to stay, or they could talk it out with me and pay for the clothes and shoes that they damaged. This was not met kindly, and both of them started cursing me out and telling me I was a selfish, conniving, snake-ass female dog. I told them that it was their choice to destroy my clothes, and all I wanted to do was to talk it out with them and figure out why this had to happen in the first place. I didn't get a straight answer other than I am a selfish pick-me who doesn't deserve anything I have. So I took it as them giving me my answer. Luckily, they were not difficult besides some passive-aggressive comments. I enjoyed the rest of my vacation as best as I could, given that I was alone. Luckily, a lot of the local women were extremely kind and chatted with me wherever I was, so it didn't feel as bad. I've been home for a little less than a week, and I've received several nasty text messages from both Libby and Kat, plus some mutual friends. I spent most of this week trying to come to terms with the fact that I am losing several friendships over this. Thanks for all the help though. The comments really gave me solid advice and the guts to actually stick up for myself in this situation. Okay, what has just happened there? The revelation that they've destroyed some of your clothes is actually nuts. How are they your friends even in the first place? I mean, you've done the right thing to sack them off entirely. They're a disgrace. It was bad enough them telling you what you could and couldn't wear, but actually going to the lengths of destroying your clothes, and I imagine that some of them outfits probably cost a lot of money if they're going out clubbing outfits. That is mental. Unbelievable. What have I just read? I mean, safe to say, throughout all of this, it was clear that you weren't the butthole, but now it's even more so. Your friends are both cows. Am I the butthole for telling my boyfriend's friends I make twice what he does when they called me a gold digger and he didn't defend me? I'm in a relationship with a guy who also works in tech. He makes 68k and I make 130k. I am a mechanical engineer at a robotics startup. He works at a more stable job doing programming at a large company. He brought me to meet his friends at a party and they asked me about myself. His friends mostly work in tech too, and they talked about themselves in terms of their jobs. I told them I'm a hiker, I do archery, I love road trips and camping and riding dirt bikes, etc. Basically talking about my hobbies, because work is just a way to get paid to do the stuff I love. It's not how I define myself, and it doesn't come to mind when someone wants me to tell them about myself. Sorry, I gotta interrupt it. Never have I agreed with a statement more. When someone says, "What do you do?" and everyone just says their job or their role, that is so boring. Tell me what you're interested in. Anyway, one of his friends asked about work, and I said, "Oh gosh, I don't want to talk about work at a party. I spent my whole day sweating my butt off in 95-degree heat, trying to replace this busted motor, just to find the replacement part was also screwed." I wasn't lying or trying to downplay that I have a good job. That really is how I spent my day, and I wasn't in the mood to talk about it at a party. Some other conversations came up casually that probably also made me seem poorer, like me saying that car dealership repairs were a ripoff, and telling my boyfriend that my childhood neighbor's trailer caught on fire and I was gonna visit and help her out. I wasn't doing it on purpose, I was literally just talking about my life. But I guess I gave the impression I was poorer. It got later in the night. Everyone was getting drunker, and some of his friends, not close ones though, were making jokes about me growing up in a trailer and being a gold digger, and being ready to jump to a richer guy. Really misogynistic stuff, honestly, since they don't even know me and seem to just assume that all girls are gold diggers. My boyfriend didn't say anything. He later said it was because he'd smoked weed and he gets quiet and has trouble carrying on a quick conversation when he's high, but regardless, I felt hurt he didn't say anything. I got irritated with his friends and asked, "Now, why the heck would you say that when I make twice what he does?" His friends went quiet for a second, and I continued saying, "There ain't no gold to dig here, not with him or anyone at this party. So do you guys think I'm cheap, or do you think I'm stupid?" My boyfriend wanted to leave the party shortly after, and he was pretty upset with me for telling everyone I make twice what he does. I said I would have held my tongue if he'd checked his friends himself, but he didn't say anything, so I wasn't about to let them talk to me like that. He said it was humiliating, and now everyone thinks I'm a female dog. And I flippantly said, well, at least they know I'm a rich female dog. He was angry that I embarrassed him when I spoke up. I was angry I had to say anything at all because his friends were talking trash, so it should be on him to check them. stuff is still tense. So, am I the butthole for explaining why I'm not a gold digger? Absolutely not. There is no way that you're the butthole. There is nothing wrong, and there's nothing more, I don't know, annoying, toxic, hateful, just rude than being called a gold digger in the first place, let alone when it's just completely not the fact. And if anything, your husband is the one that's gold digging, right? Technically, if there was going to be one of you, it's him. You're earning double his amount. I don't think it's that big of a deal that he didn't stand up for you in that moment. I mean, look, if he's had a bit to smoke, I can understand why maybe he didn't and he thought, you know, you're all friends. He should have done. I'm not saying he shouldn't have done, but I can understand why in that split moment he didn't. But to say that you were humiliating him because you stood up for yourself, that is a big no-no in my opinion. You had to stand up for yourself. And what you said was completely correct. So I don't know why he's having a go at you for that. Overall, I'm getting the picture that this guy isn't the best. Clearly, he's not the best on his own. And his friends, after a couple of drinks, quite toxic. You said they're not his close friends, but still. His friends in general, I don't know why they're really saying this sort of stuff. And by the way, I do mean what I say. When people say, what do you do? Reply with hobbies. Nobody cares what your job is anyway. I don't care if you're a student. Shut up. I care what you're interested in, so that's a good answer. Am I the butthole for telling my husband he should be ashamed of himself and taking the girls and going home after he made them wait outside of the restaurants? I am a mother of two 19-year-old twins. They're girls. Their dad and I split up 6 years ago, and I'm now married to my husband, Kevin. The problem is, Kevin thinks that my girls are not disciplined, simply because they don't follow everything he tells them, because they don't see him as their father. We've already talked about that. Especially the part where he expects them to dress how he wants them to, and behave how he wants them to. He even called them weirdos, but that's just how teenagers are, and it's not a new thing. Anyways, I told him he needed to loosen up a little, and lessen his expectations of them. But I get it's hard to do given he was brought up in a conservative household with a hardcore Christian family. Last week, he started a fight after seeing one of the girls' hairstyles and said that she was looking trashy. Because of this, we had to cancel our trip to the mall because he refused to drive us. A couple of days ago, we wanted to go out for dinner. I was intending on getting off work at 6, but had some stuff to get done. My husband and I agreed that he'd take the girls and go to the restaurant and wait for me there. He called me before they got out of the house to complain about what the girls were wearing. The girls sent me pics and I thought nothing was wrong with their outfits, and I told him to just drop it and go. He said fine, then muttered something about me enabling them and then hung up. While I was still at work, I got a call from one of the girls telling me their stepdad had them stand and wait outside the restaurant because he didn't want to be seen with them dressing like that. I was stunned. I rushed to the restaurant and found them near the car. They explained he told them to wait in the car till he told them to come in, basically waiting for me. Then they started crying, so I had them get in my car and went inside the restaurant and found him on his phone. I went off on him and told him he should be ashamed of himself for treating my daughters like there was something to be ashamed of. He tried backpedaling, saying it wasn't like that, but I interrupted him and then walked out after cancelling dinner. We went home, and he came back hours later, trying to argue that I can't blame him for disapproving of the girl's recklessness, and that he tried communicating, but I shut him down and treated him as less of a parent when he's just wanting what's best for them. He doesn't speak to me or the girls anymore. Alright, semi-complex one here, because although you are definitely not the butthole in this situation solely, I think the way you acted here was actually perfect. Some would argue that you are the butthole overall because you were the one that chose to get into a relationship with this man in the first place. Now, I just don't understand how you could possibly have married somebody that acts like this. I mean, he sounds mental. You have like zero common ground. It's clear that your daughters very much dislike him. I don't really know what his intention is with them. He just is not acting like a father at all. From what I can see, just reading back through it pretty much, he just seems like a terrible father figure. No wonder your daughters hate him. So although the way you acted in this situation was fine, I think overall you are slightly the butthole for bringing this man into your daughters' lives in the first place, if that makes sense. Let me know if you agree on that one, because it's a little bit meta, and I might be wrong. Get in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Am I the butthole for ruining my brother's marriage because his wife left me at the pool? This whole situation is so bizarre that I still can't really process it. It still doesn't feel real, but I feel scared and guilty. I am a 19-year-old woman, and I had surgery a couple of days ago to get all 4 of my wisdom teeth out. And because I have a really bad fear of dentists, they had to drug me pretty hard to do the removal. Not like laughing gas that wears off really fast, but actual IV medicine, so I was pretty much unconscious during the whole thing. They told me to have a responsible adult drive me to the appointment and back because the meds they gave me would make it dangerous to drive. My mum was on a work trip and couldn't take me, so I asked my sister-in-law, Bree, 24, not her real name, if she could do it, as the whole thing would only take an hour or two. I even offered her gas money because the dental office is about 45 minutes away. Now, I would have asked my brother, but he works during the day, while Bree is a stay-at-home mum to their 2-year-old daughter, who I think was at Bree's mum's house that day. Bree agreed to take me to my appointment, and the surgery went fine. Bree waited in the lobby for me to be done. When I came out of anesthesia, I was very disoriented and nauseous, which I guess is normal. I had gauze shoved in my mouth to stop any bleeding, and Bree took me to her car after I was let go. I don't really remember the drive, but it felt like not enough time passed before Bree got out of the car and told me to come with her. I was really out of it and just followed her because the alternative was staying in the hot car. Long story short, we were at a pool? I was really confused, but once we were through the gate, Bree basically parked me at one of those little table benches and said that she'd be back in a while. I was still trying not to puke, and I was really dizzy from the heat. It was 90+ degrees. And the drugs, so I asked her to take me home, but she wouldn't. I guess since it was her day off and she didn't have my niece, she was meeting friends at the pool. I started to feel really sick and on the verge of passing out or having a panic attack, so I called my brother. I don't think he could understand me between the meds and the stuff in my mouth because he hung up and I guess called Bree because she came stomping back over, cussing and yelling at me and took me back to the car. I passed out on the drive home, but when we arrived, my brother had left work and met us in the driveway. He was screaming at Bree and she was crying. I was still pretty disoriented, but my brother took me back home and stayed with me until the meds wore off. That's when he told me that he's divorcing Bree because of what she did, plus some other things he didn't go into detail about. It's been a few days since then, and Bree has been blowing up my phone, telling me what a female dog I am and how me tattling destroyed her family. Now, part of me feels bad for my niece, and I wonder if I should have just dealt with it and waited for her to be done at the pool instead of calling my brother and causing problems. So, am I the butthole? Okay, well, no doubt in my mind, OP, that you are definitely not the butthole, not even close. If you're feeling a little bit guilty because you were the one that asked Bree to, take you to the hospital and pick you up again, and you've caused, in air quotes, the separation of that family, you definitely haven't, and you definitely shouldn't feel guilty about it. Look, Bree agreeing to take you to and from hospital is a nice thing to do, but as soon as she's done that, she is therefore responsible for you. She knew what sort of situation and shape you'd be in. I mean, everyone knows that after having your wisdom teeth taken out, you're all over the place. We've all seen the videos online, haven't we, of people that have had their teeth taken out just going mental. How has she left you on your ones and gone off to meet her friends? That is shocking. And I understand what you're saying in terms of her niece and your brother's relationship with her, but trust me, that would not be the only reason that your brother is breaking up with her and divorcing her. That will be the tip of the iceberg. I can guarantee you that. Entitled dad gets his son bitten by a venomous snake. This past weekend, I decided that it would be a good idea to hit up some biking trails at the local nature preserve. I packed up my trail bike early in the morning to go riding, since the morning was the coolest the temperatures were going to be for that day. A thing to note is that in Texas, we experience triple-digit heat in the summer, and because of this, snake encounters are much more frequent in parks and nature preserves. Most of the time, the snakes tend to avoid places where people frequent, even more so with bikers. However, sometimes there are rare encounters. So then, onto the story. I was riding through the trails just enjoying the scenic ride. I was enjoying cool temperatures due to the forest overcast and the wonderful serenity of nature. I'd soon reached a part of the trail that ran alongside a creek, and up ahead I saw a park ranger holding a long stick standing next to a plastic container. I also noticed that he was intensely focused on something on the side of the trail. As I approached, the park ranger saw me and quickly put his hand out, motioning to me to stop. I immediately hit the brakes and got off my bike. Out of curiosity, I tilted my head to catch a glimpse of what the ranger was focused on. What I saw caused my eyes to grow wide. On the side of the trail was a very beautiful but very venomous copperhead that was coiled up to strike. I quickly checked my surrounding area to see if there were any other snakes near me. Luckily for me, I didn't see any. I nervously watched as the ranger caught the copperhead using his stick, carefully placed it inside his container, and slammed it shut. I breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Nice catch. The park ranger held up the box. Thank you. We usually don't get copperheads on this part of the preserve. This little guy must have wandered here overnight. Enter the entitled parents. As I got closer to the park ranger to get a better look at the snake, I heard a voice coming from behind me. A kid, about 12 years old and with a British accent, was approaching with his dad, a tall and very husky fellow, and they saw the ranger holding up the box with the still very angry copperhead inside. "Daddy, look! That man has a snake! It reminds me of the one I had back in England." "Pretty one, isn't it? Maybe we can take it home as your new pet snake," said his dad. The entitled dad walked right up to the park ranger. "Excuse me, sir. Do you think by chance you could give me that snake so I can let my son keep it as a pet?" The park ranger gave the man a look that clearly had the expression of, "Are you serious right now? I really don't think you want this snake as a pet." "Oh, rubbish. I've had pet ball pythons for years back in my home country. This snake won't be any different. This is definitely not a ball python, nor a snake you should treat as one. Okay, just give me the snake." The entitled dad then suddenly snatched the box away from the park ranger and pushed him back, causing him to stumble backwards and fall into the creek. I rushed to help up the park ranger, and as I was doing so, I saw the Darwin Award-worthy moment unfolds. The kid looks at the snake and says, "Daddy, he's beautiful. Can I pet him before we take him home?" "Sure." The dad opened the box containing the still angry copperhead, and the kid proceeded to reach inside. The snake obviously wasted no time and immediately lashed out and bit the entitled kid's hand. The kid cried out in pain and started crying. The entitled dad threw the box on the ground, to which the snake quickly escaped into the bushes. I was very attentive as to where the snake landed and slithered off to. While the entitled dad was checking on his kid, the park ranger called for a medical unit, and notably a police officer. The entitled dad seemed confused about the call. "I don't think the medical call is necessary. It's just a minor snake bite." "I don't think you understand, sir. That snake wasn't just a harmless ball python. That snake was a copperhead. Bites from them are venomous." "Wait, so you're telling me that you guys just let venomous snakes freely roam the park?" "Well, sir, this area is part of the snake's natural habitats." "Still, you guys should be doing something about that. People walk through here." "Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing until you took the snake from me, sir." The dad then looks at me. "Can you believe this rubbish? Don't bring me into this, dude. After all, you did take the snake from the ranger." "Ugh," the dad scoffs. A golf cart with a medic and what looked like a senior ranger arrived, and the medic immediately sat the entitled kid down to look at the bites. The senior ranger walked over to us, and the entitled dad wasted no time complaining. "You blokes ought to be ashamed of yourselves. A public park with dangerous snakes wandering about?" "Sir, this region is part of their natural habitats. While we do work to keep them from public areas, you are still going to encounter them from time to time. But from what my coworker tells me, you took the snake from him and then let your son try to pet it." The dad was visibly nervous. Yes? "Well, we have an ambulance to take your son to the hospital at the park entrance, and an officer that would like to have a word with you. I suggest you come with me." The entitled dad sheepishly got onto the car with his son, and the four of them all left for the park entrance. I took the opportunity and finished up my bike ride, while keeping an eye out for any more snakes. When I got to the park entrance, I saw the senior ranger from earlier. I curiously asked him what happened after they got back to the park entrance. Apparently, the cop they called was waiting for the entitled dad when they got there. The cop let him off with a warning, but not after giving him a stern butt-chewing about how he should have arrested him for child endangerment. Wow, does it get more stupid than this, Dad? I mean, long-term viewers and listeners of my channel will know that I myself do have a pet snake called Marty. He is a corn snake. It literally doesn't get less venomous or less dangerous to a human than a corn snake. Yet, even though Marty is just a corn snake and he's barely bitten anyone in his entire life, I am still careful around him because I know that he has the potential to bite people because he's a snake. It's obvious. So the fact that this entitled dad, even after being told that this snake is venomous, still encourages his 12-year-old kid to touch it and wants to take it home as a pet, just shows how ridiculous he is. And it's a shame, to be honest, that the kid was the one that got bitten and not the dad. My entitled family don't like my boyfriend for all the wrong reasons. So these events happened in July 2021, but I'm just finding out about them now. I am a 21-year-old woman, and exactly 1 year ago, my 22-year-old boyfriend of 2 years got caught on fire. His leg was badly burned, and he has permanent scars from his left foot all the way up to his right ear. He spent a few days in hospital and was discharged, but he couldn't work or drive for a month and had difficulty walking by himself. 15 days after his burn was my cousin's graduation party. We were both invited, and my boyfriend was very insistent that we show up because we said we would. I talked to my cousin and his parents and explained the situation and that we can't stay for long due to my boyfriend's condition. They understood and were happy that we decided to show up despite everything. So the day of the grad party arrives, and I go for a more dressy look because I know my cousin and his family are kinda snobby. My boyfriend wants to dress up too, seeing as this is his first time that he'd meet my extended family. But the clothes are too tight on his body and they cause him excessive pain. So I encourage him to wear something more casual, saying my family will understand. I drive and we show up. Straight up, my boyfriend doesn't look the best. He's in baggy casual clothing that shows his bandages. His normally long blonde hair is singed and matted because he hadn't washed it in a week. Water and burns don't mix. My boyfriend limps around with me at his side, meeting everyone and making small talk. We eat food, we congratulate my cousin, and after an hour or so, we go. After such a short encounter, I didn't expect my family to immediately like him. I asked around and everyone said they don't know him well enough to form an opinion about him, which is fair. However, I recently learned through my mum that this was not the case. Most of my extended family hates my boyfriend, and for the most stupid of reasons. They don't like that he has long hair, or that he works a blue-collar job, and even that he didn't show up in fancy clothes. They're disappointed that I choose to date trash like him. That's their words, not mine. Some of my aunts even started planning a trip to take me to Italy so I can meet foreign boys in hopes of me cheating on my boyfriend. I would have understood if they didn't like him because he seemed like a butthole or for any good reason. But knowing what I know now makes me rethink everything I know about them, and I see how entitled they've been. Yeah, pretty simple one here. Your family are all just snobs. I mean, you said it yourself, so it's not a rude thing for me to say. And it's definitely true. I mean, come on, any normal person after meeting someone who has gone through something as horrible as this would give them so much lenience. It's amazing that he even came in the first place. That shows unreal commitment and would not be expected of him in a normal family, let's be honest. I mean, come on, what do they want? Him to stay there hobbling around for 6+ hours, wearing horrifically uncomfortable clothes just to look good? No one cares, ultimately. I rate you for showing up. I probably wouldn't have bothered. My mum thinks she's entitled to my prostitute money. So, for the last couple of years, I've worked as a dancer at a well-known gentleman's club. It's quite high-end and security is very good. A customer only has to say something we don't like and they'd get kicked out. It's actually a lot of fun, and when it's a good night, the tips are great, and I managed to save a decent amount of money. I didn't tell my mum where I was working as I knew exactly what her reaction would be. Unfortunately for me, about a year in, someone she knew had come to the club and spotted me there. Of course, it didn't take long to get back to her. She hit the roof and called me everything you could think of, including a prostitute, and then she kicked me out. I stayed with a friend for about a week until I managed to secure an apartment and decided to get on with my life. I'm making enough to support myself quite comfortably. I guess my mum found all of this out from my sister, and she realized I was making decent money. Because, out of nowhere, she calls me to demand money. No hello or how are you, but I apparently owe her more for letting me live at home. I did pay rent while I was living at home, although I probably could have paid more considering I was earning quite a bit, but I didn't want to raise suspicions and I gave my mum what was asked of me. Now before I even comment on this story guys, there is an update. I've not had a lot of contact with my mum since my first post, apart from yesterday, which I will get to, and also when she dumped a box at my front door that had our 2 house cats in. Luckily I was in, as she hadn't bothered with air holes. I caught her just as she was about to leave, and she told me she couldn't afford to take care of them and didn't like the hair. Fair enough, I missed them a lot, and they actually, after settling in, got on really well with my puppy that I'd recently bought. So for the last month or so, I've had a friend from the club staying with me. She just came out of a really bad relationship and needed somewhere to stay for a while. I've loved having her here. She's great company, pays her way, and takes turns cooking and cleaning, so I'm not in a rush for her to move out. Anyway, a couple of days ago, I get a call from my sister in tears. She's just broken up with her boyfriend and he's kicked her out. I'm not surprised to be honest. My sister, like my mum, does not work and would spend all day lazing around while he worked. She also didn't clean or cook or do anything as far as I could see, and they were constantly arguing. After speaking to her for a while, trying to console her, I said goodbye and didn't think much of it. Until yesterday. Mum calls and asks why the heck I haven't taken my sister in, and what kind of sister would let her go homeless. I calmly reminded her that she had an empty house, so why couldn't my sister stay there? She then starts screaming that she has no job and neither does my sister, so how the heck is she supposed to afford her staying there? I told her that I have a friend staying with me and that I just do not have the room for my sister to stay as well. Well, that completely set her off. I couldn't make out much of what she was saying, but I did hear selfish lesbian female dog, and at that point I just cut the phone off. I've blocked her number for now. I do feel slightly guilty about my sister, but with 2 of us, 2 cats and a dog, it's cozy enough as it is. Thanks for reading. I just had to get this off my chest, as I think it's insane. Well, you're not wrong there, OP. It certainly is insane. What I don't get is, from your mum's perspective, why can't her daughter just go and move back in with her? That's what would normally happen, right? It's not going to increase her rent to have another person living there, is it? I just don't really understand. Maybe there's more info that we don't have here, but yeah, it's very confusing as to why she wouldn't just let her move back in with her. As for your situation, I agree. There's no obligation for you to let your sister move in. Of course, it would be nice, and I'm sure you would do if you had space, but you can't then just kick out your friend for the sake of your sister. Not in the short term anyway. So yeah, there's not really much more you can do. I think your mum, rather than berating you and calling you a lesbian out of nowhere, should do the right thing and take your sister in. That's what I would do. Apparently, I'm the rude one. My aunt has cancer, 3 autoimmune conditions, and pneumonia. And because she's a woman of color who was overweight, doctors just kept telling her to lose weight instead of listening to her that something was wrong. So she's been sick for years at this point and only got diagnosed after losing almost 100 pounds in a matter of months because she was too sick to eat anything or keep anything down. She's doing chemo and is taking a ton of medications on a daily basis. Her 2 kids, my cousins, 13 and 10, have been told about her cancer, and they've seen how sick she is and are actually aware that their mother might die soon. It's important to note that they've not told anyone outside of the family. They want as few people to know as possible. My younger cousin has this friend we're going to call Chad. Chad is a frickin' hellion, and his parents are worse. So Chad's parents have planned an adults-only 7-day vacation for themselves. They started planning it 6 months ago. They've only just now realised that they didn't get any childcare and have been attempting to manipulate my aunt and uncle into doing it. My aunt and uncle can be too polite sometimes, and I swear my uncle has a sponge instead of a spine. Earlier today, I was dropping some stuff off that they were going to borrow, and Chad's parents were over, trying to convince my aunt and uncle to take in their demon spawn for an entire week. To give some credit to my uncle, he is trying to say no. Oh, I don't know, we're a little busy this week. Are you sure you don't want to leave him with family? I'll be too busy with work. It's more likely that their family said, heck no. And these people just keep going on and on and on about how much fun the boys will have. Staying up late, playing video games, eating delicious food that my aunt will no doubt make for them. It's perfect, they say. Why don't we drop him off tomorrow afternoon? My aunt and uncle were clearly trying and failing to get them to back off. And you know what? Chad's parents most definitely knew. They just didn't care and were doing everything possible to wear them down into accepting. Well, I spent quite a bit of my life as a doormat out of concern for politeness. Since becoming an adult, I have learned to set and stick to healthy boundaries and putting my safety and well-being first. If you don't already do that, I strongly recommend giving it a try. It's fantastic. So I stepped in, because not only were they just not capable of taking care of that crotch goblin, they both just looked so miserable, desperate and exhausted. But also, my aunt looked the sickest I've ever seen her. This is the gist of that conversation. Sorry, they can't watch Chad while you're away. Good luck finding someone though. Who even are you? They ask. They clearly can watch Chad, they're just being selfish out of petty jealousy. I'm their niece. And no, they can't. I'm sorry about that, but they can't. And they've spent the last several minutes trying to tell you in the most polite way possible. You can't speak for them. And you can, because you're acting like you're entitled to their time. Besides, there's a family emergency happening with my grandmother and they need to help her, so they'll be too busy. Now that's not entirely a lie. My granny did have a huge currently ongoing health emergency, but because of my aunt's condition, we've been keeping them in the loop, but not asking them for help. You don't understand, they said. We have no other options. If they don't watch him, we'll have to either hire a nanny, which is so expensive, or cancel the trip. Now I reply with a quote that I love so much, and I use it every chance I get. A lack of planning on your part does not create an emergency on theirs. You are Chad's parents. It's your job to provide for your child and no one else's. You are being so rude to us. Apologize right now. No, absolutely not. If they're not going to watch him, are you? Because we're not leaving until we have someone to watch Chad while we're on our trip. So who is it? Them or you? Okay, you need to leave. No one here is going to provide childcare for you, so you should probably go and find someone who will. No, we're not leaving until you apologize and someone agrees to watch Chad. Chad and my cousin at this point had come downstairs because of all the yelling, and they asked what was going on. I took $10 out of my pocket, and I told Chad that if he could get his parents to leave my aunt and uncle's house, it was his. It took him less than 2 minutes. Best $10 I've ever spent. Now, if you're wondering what exactly Chad did in those 2 minutes to make his family leave that quickly, OP did actually say below that he stood between his parents and sang Baby Shark at the top of his lungs for 20 to 30 seconds. That didn't immediately work. Then he started saying Captain Underpants catchphrases. That didn't work either, so he just started screaming. And at that point, they left. I mean, what a family is all I can say. I just don't get people like this. How can you book a holiday just for you, not with your kid, 6 months in the past, and then not think about childcare? What are you expecting? I really don't know. That'd be the first thing that would obviously come to your mind before even booking the holiday, thinking, is it possible to get some childcare? If not, we obviously can't go and leave our son here. It's ridiculous, as always on this subreddit. Mock the disabled. Justice is served many years later. This is a story about a POS receiving their deserved karma several years later. Many years ago, I worked in the lovely career of retail. It's sadly normal for there to be a constant flow of shop scum that make you despise their existence. And there are those that are so horrific that what they do is burned into your mind forever. Fortunately, one of these unforgettable moments allowed me to extract my revenge. I had only worked in retail for 1 year in this newly built store and was starting to settle in, getting to know the great customers and understanding that some people shouldn't be allowed outside, which, being a shy person who hates conflict, wasn't the best, but at least one of my customers was an absolutely adorable elderly lady who always made time to talk and was an absolute joy to be with. It had been some weeks since I'd last seen her, but one morning, I see her car park into the disabled parking bay, as she already has a blue badge, only this time she hobbled out of the car on crutches with a pot on her leg. I didn't have the chance to talk to her yet when a works truck, which did not have a blue disabled badge, pulled into the disabled space next to her and outjumped an early 40s builder with their teenage kid. Well, this little old lady was having none of this and must have absolutely massive balls of steel and stood up to this ignorant builder, politely informing them that they shouldn't be parking there as it's for the disabled and he doesn't have a badge. What happened next, I can't forget. This builder decided the best course of action was to humiliate and insult this poor elderly lady on crutches, accuse her of faking her disability, and claim the cast on her leg was a fake and that she probably milks the benefit system for as much money as possible. Then walks off, putting on an overdramatic fake limp, laughing away with their teenage kid, whilst the old lady stood there in shock. Sadly, being one who lacks courage, I did absolutely nothing about it, and that would stick with me forever. I tried feebly to ask a manager later to do something about it, but they didn't care or want to get involved. For years, I worked in this store, always seeing this scum builder come in and out. Fortunately, I never interacted with this scum builder, but I saw them often, and every time I did, I would always remember what they had done vividly. I would still see them park in the disabled bays, and even got to the point where I would recognize them by the large blue Mercedes they drove. 7 years later, I was still working in the store, and this scum was still parking in disabled, looking like an absolute idiot. Yet this year, I was blessed with good fortune, and our store was outfitted with some absolute joyful equipment. Due to the high number of complaints, our store had set up a company to deal with the parking violations. But instead of having external parties coming in and ticketing cars, the staff of the store were given the ticketing machine, and it was our duty to go to the car park and record any cars that violated the parking rules. This was all done digitally, and there'd be no paper tickets upon the cars. This was brilliant. As soon as I found out, I knew what I was going to do. It didn't take long for me to learn how to use the machine, and it certainly didn't take long for the opportunity to get revenge. And so it began. There were 3 rules for parking, and if you break these rules, there is a lovely £80 fine in return each time it happened. The first rule: no parking in disabled without a badge. And I know well that the scum builder is certainly violating this rule, and it wasn't long until I saw him next, and as soon as he entered the store, I quickly scurried out with the ticketing machine, and lo and behold, there was the oversized blue Mercedes in the closest disabled bay with no badge. I smashed those car details in with some well-shot photos and sent the report off so that they would receive a lovely letter of their fine that they would have to pay. But that is not enough though. Fortunately, it takes weeks for them to finally receive the ticket, which grants me the opportunity to constantly ticket their parking violations. Because, as you would expect, this scum would always park in disabled, and as I worked front of store, I would always know when they'd parked. After ticketing their car dozens of times, the scum unfortunately learnt their lesson, as their oversized blue Mercedes no longer appeared in disabled parking bays. But, as you expect, the scum would still be scum, and they would find their new parking space inside child parking. Rule 2. Don't park inside child parking without a child. Had this scum gotten enough, I thought? Of course not. They haven't learnt their lesson and continue to be a complete idiot and park in the child parking, which we didn't have many spaces for. At this point, I knew all their car details by heart and would gleefully fill out the ticket machine as I skipped over to their car, violating the child parking, and take the photos needed for them, including shots of their car seats that bear no child seats in them. And as it became routine, this once again carried on for a few weeks, with more tickets being created, and eventually they start receiving the fines. Fortunately, me being me, I am completely invisible to others and often overlooked, and I've yet to been seen or caught. But as all good things must eventually come to an end, when the scum came into the shop, their blue turd automobile was no longer there in child parking or disabled. Has the scum finally learnt their lesson? Would you be surprised if they had not, as it didn't take me long to find them. Rule 3, you must park inside a marked bay. And what a surprise, the scum still manages to screw this up. They'd park over the line, taking 2 spaces up. Well, guess what? That's a job for me and my ticket machine. Trying to park inside taxi parking, but can't fit the big ass car in it? Boom, that ain't inside a marked bay, and ka-ching, another ticket and fine for thee. Have one single wheel slightly over the white line of a bay? Well, guess who technically broke the rule? That's right, Scumbag did. And there goes a few more weeks of fun, until eventually the scumbag runs out of ways that they can possibly break the rules, and our company hires externally to start ticketing cars. So my beloved weapon of justice goes to rest. Now I know what people are probably going to say, that all these fines are not enforceable because of blah blah blah, but I honestly don't care for a few reasons. Firstly, I'm being paid to do this, so either way my time or money isn't wasted. Secondly, it did have an effect, as they repeatedly changed their parking habits. And thirdly, even if they don't end up paying, they're still going to spend an absolute load of time and effort trying to overturn the tickets again and again, having to constantly be harassed by mail. Overall, if the fines are counted separately and added up, they would have received thousands of pounds worth of fines building up over time for being scum. Cherry on the top? About 3 years later, I walked by this piece of scum in the car park and watch as they scream at some innocent dude in a high-vis jacket, accusing them of being the one giving them all the parking fines. Now this put me at peace, knowing this must have seriously got to them and cost them to still be raving mad after 3 years. You know, the only bad part of this story is that the fines had to end. I mean, it was gonna happen, it was inevitable, but my word, imagine this just happened for years and years, and these scumbags never found out until they were hit with like, I don't know, a £50,000 fine or something. That is the only way the story could have been improved. It is kind of crazy though how one bad act, this scumbag abusing a disabled person for no reason, has led to this. One person, OP, seeking the best possible revenge and it causing them years, literal years of hardship. it is pretty poetic, I've got to say. Don't mess with an engineer. I worked for a company that provides specialized equipment used in manufacturing. To protect my anonymity, I'll have to be vague about what exactly this machine does. During my time working in this field, I got to know many clients who would need these machines installed and serviced. One of these customers we'll call Jake. I later left the company to do a different job, but Jake apparently kept my number. One afternoon, I got a call from Jake that they wanted a new unit installing and another unit needed maintenance and wanted to know if I was available. I let him know that I'd left the company, but that I could pass him on to someone who could help. He tells me he'll pay 2x my current rate to install the unit over the weekend. He lets me know that the company has increased the rates for installation and the company just can't afford it. The instructions they sent over just aren't clear enough, and their engineers are scratching their heads trying to figure it out. He begs me to consider it, and I agree. For more context, installing this unit can take a good few hours, or up to a day on your own. The company gives you two options. You can either pay for an engineer to come and install it, or you can save money and they'll send instructions so the customer's own engineers can install it. The instructions aren't easy to follow, and it's company policy that if someone has started to install the equipment, the supplier wouldn't get involved since they couldn't verify that any of the pieces were broken. This will be important later. I drive down on the weekend and they show me the boxes of equipment. I set to work and I make good progress installing the units. Around 6 hours in, and I'm stopped by Jake, who greets me. I let him know I'm nearly finished and he tells me, "Sorry, but they just don't have the budget to pay you." He understands my frustration, but his engineers can take it from here. To say I was frustrated was an understatement. I wanted revenge. There's a small button inside the unit that changes the unit into test mode. This is done to perform maintenance on the unit, but it's impossible to configure the unit with this button pressed. It's only possible to reach this button using a pin, so it's not easily pressed during installation. Because of this, the installation instructions don't mention it. There's no real way of telling the equipment is in test mode. It just won't work normally. I think you can guess where this is going. I click the button, collect my things, and leave. Monday morning, I get a call from Jake. I declined. I knew my old company wouldn't get involved since I'd already started installing the units. I knew his engineers would never figure it out, so I just had to let him stew. A few days later, with many missed calls, I finally pick up. Jake is furious. He asks me where the hell I've been and why I haven't been picking up the phone. He tells me they cannot figure out how to configure the machine and they need my help. I tell him, why is this my problem? You won't pay me. He told me he was sorry and they'd work something out if I could just get there as soon as possible. I told him, oh no, you're gonna pay me £7,000 up front before I do anything. I'd never felt this powerful before. He screamed at me for a bit and hung up. He called back a day later after saying he's sorry for how he acted and said that if I could come and fix it, he would pay me in a totally defeated tone. He tried to fight it, saying he'll pay when I was done, but I was having none of it. After a bit of back and forth, he agrees to pay me. The money hit my account and I came in the next day. The look of confusion on his face when I took out a pin and changed the unit from test mode was priceless. It was even more priceless seeing his reaction to me packing up my tools and leaving after only 20 minutes of configuring. That is the easiest £7,000 I've ever made. Don't try to mess with a professional problem solver. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that is some great karma right there. If you've instructed a man to work on something for an agreed fee for hours and then not paid him, you deserve the worst. Simple as that. Like, it doesn't get any more scummy. I know we talked a lot about scums in the first story, but it gets no less scummy in my opinion than literally agreeing a price with someone, saying, yeah, do all the work, and then with just a little bit left at the end saying, oh, don't worry, my guys can take it from here. We're not going to pay you. I actually couldn't afford it. Scum. No drinks, no tip. So, I'm working at a huge party, concert, miscellaneous event locations, and I'm the guy responsible for refilling the bars with drinks every time the bartender mails an order, and also picking up the used glasses and pints to bring them to the washing station that we have. In general, I'm the guy that helps the bars running there. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 of us in a shift, but other times not. There can be nights that there are 5 bars open and the place is full of around 3,000 people. Just to give you a taste of what the job looks like when the place is packed on a typical Friday or Saturday night, Imagine that you have to carry and deliver around 20 beer kegs, each with a weight of 65 kilograms, that's 130 pounds, and around 60 cases of beer and soft drinks just when you start your shifts. When something goes out at the bar, the bartender makes a new order that I have to deliver, and this goes on all night long from 5 p.m. to 6 a.m, and sometimes there are goer parties till 11 a.m. Also, just to give another taste of how big this place is, during a normal shift, according to my phone, I'm walking 28 kilometers. That's 17 miles. What? Where I come from, we call this job the runner. The unwritten law here is like this, that each bartender has to give 20% of their tip that they make each night to the runner. Because without a runner, he would have no drinks to serve. Nobody can really know who is really giving the 20% of their tip, but that's another story. But every bartender is giving something, and usually it's a lot, and all sides are happy. A new guy comes in, and the staff manager explains to him this unwritten rule, saying exactly these words. You don't want to have problems with any of the runners, so be fair. Now, when you've been doing this job for a while, you will know approximately if the tip you will be getting is good or not. So, fast forward. It's a huge metal festival with all bars open, 3 different stages and outdoor bars, etc., plus after-show parties. The place is packed like there is no tomorrow. This festival happens every year and it's one of the best shifts, even though it's a lot of work, around 17 hours at that. Yes, it's a lot, but walking home with 1,000 tip is worth it. So, this new guy has a spot at a very good selling bar. He was providing and delivering drinks there like crazy. After a long shift when everything is done and they do their calculations, he brings the money to the treasury, looks at me and says, cold-blooded, "Thank you. Have a good night. Tonight was a good night to work," and walks away without giving me my tip. That was it, folks. I kept doing my job every time he had a shift at one of the bars, like nothing happened, and I was just waiting for a full packed night to come. And finally, after a week, it was the time. Again, the place is fully packed. His first orders arrive in my tablets. Sadly, I was too busy to deliver though. 1 hour passes and he tries to call me on my phone. I pick up standing next to a subwoofer. 1.5 hours go by and a second order arrives from him. I didn't even deliver the first one. Sadly, I was again too busy. Then, after another half hour, the shift manager calls me on the radio. The shift manager was also doing this job before getting a better position there.
Hey, what the frick is going on? Why has he got no drinks to sell?
I'm busy with the rest of the bars. The guests can go to the other bars, I reply.
Are you serious? That guy can only sell water and everything else is empty.
And then I reply, he can sell water, but no one tips a bartender for a water, right? Cue a small pause on the radio.
You can't be frickin' serious. He's leaving no tip for you guys?
Yep, you guessed right.
I'm sending this idiot home.
Positive. You see, this wouldn't be that bad if this guy was genuinely making a mistake and didn't realise that this was the culture, but he's been explicitly told by your staff manager that this is what people do. And also, he knows how important the role you play is as his runner. Without him, as you say and as we saw, he doesn't serve anything because he's got nothing to serve. The fact that he was explicitly told, you need to do this, and then still didn't do it and said, thank you for your work, and that was it. That is shocking. Now guys, before I end today's episode, for you loyal viewers and listeners that always watch at the very end of my episodes every single time, listen, I love you first of all, and I know who you are, and I appreciate you a lot. I thought I'd chuck in one extra little nuclear revenge story just for you guys. If you clicked on this video, this episode, and you watched the first 2 minutes, and then you clicked off, well, you didn't know there was some nuclear revenge in this. But just to reward you lot for watching the whole thing, here we go. This is r/nuclear revenge. My grandmother almost killed my mother's first fiance. My grandmother told me this story and I wanted to share it. This all happened in 1985, so this was before security cameras were a household thing. Plus, this happened in the middle of nowhere, Georgia. My grandmother, Clara, told me that when my mum, Angela, turned 19, she got engaged to a man named Dick. That's his actual name, by the way. Clara noticed that he was very controlling, i.e. she couldn't use her phone, the landline, and he forbid her from going to family events. Clara's final straw was when my mum called her in the middle of the night crying, saying she couldn't do it anymore and that he had been beating her. By this point, they'd been together for almost 2 years and had my older brother. Clara told my mum to go to my great-grandfather's house and stay there. but tell Dick that she was going to her house. My mum did as she was asked, and Clara waited for him. He eventually came in the middle of the night, yelling that Angela needed to come home and stop acting like a child. Clara told Dick that Angela was inside. He went in and Clara came in behind him and hit him over the head with a bat that she'd set beside the inside of the door. Dick fell to the floor and Clara hit him several more times in the legs and arms, breaking one of his arms and fracturing a rib. When she was done, she told him to never come near her daughter or he would be in a ditch next. He never came back. I'm pretty sure he burned my mum's stuff, but she didn't care. And there we go, a little nuclear revenge reward, I guess, for watching the entirety of this episode. I don't really know if I can call a story like that a reward, but hey, it was definitely nuclear. I mean, if that is the only way to stop abuse and domestic abuse, even in the modern day, I know this was 1985, but come on, that's not a long time ago. And what's this world come to? It's a disgrace. I mean, fair play to your grandma for doing that, but my word, the fact that she had to do that just to stop someone from domestically abusing someone is insane. I'm worried that my sister has feelings for my girlfriend. My girlfriend and I have been together for 2.5 years, and we have a really great relationship. My sister and I have always been close, so I was really happy when she and my girlfriend met and hit it off right away. They get along insanely well and it's awesome. Or it was awesome. It might be important to point out that they're both bisexual. Everything was normal up until about 3 months ago. They started hanging out together more often than usual, taking day trips and having sleepovers and going for dinner, etc. I didn't care about it initially. I thought it was cool that the two most important women in my life were such good friends. Then my sister, Amy, started making comments saying that if we ever broke up, she's first in line to date my girlfriend Emily. She calls Emily her wifey and follows her around like a lost puppy. Amy says that Emily is our girlfriend, and I swear she gets jealous when I interact with her. Then, last week I got home from work, and as I walked through the door, I could hear them chatting in the living room. This isn't out of the ordinary. It was what I heard that really bothered me. My sister said, "Holy heck, I have such a crush on you," in the most lustful voice I've ever heard. God, I really hated typing that. Emily laughed, and their conversation moved on, but it really didn't sit well with me. So later on, I asked Emily what they were talking about. I think context is important. She told me they went shopping earlier in the day and were doing a little fashion show for each other. She said that those kinds of comments are normal between girlfriends, and it's nothing to worry about. It made sense to me, and I trust Emily. I decided to talk to Amy. I asked how the shopping spree went, etc. And then I gently asked her what the crush comment was about. She got very defensive and accused me of being jealous of her relationship with Emily, then told me to grow the F up. I'm not worried about Emily doing anything behind my back to betray me, and I never have been. There's just something about the way my sister is acting that irks me, and I don't know how to approach this without blowing up any of our relationships. Now, just a couple of days later, OP posted the following updates. There have been some developments. When I got home from work yesterday evening, I found the two of them on the couch in the living room watching a movie. I decided that I should just get it over with. So I sat down in the seat across from them and said that the three of us needed to have a talk. I basically just asked them if there was something going on between them, and I mentioned how much extra time they've been spending together, acting almost like they're dating. My sister immediately started sobbing, and Emily just looked really sad. Amy couldn't speak through the tears, so Emily filled me in. It turns out that Amy has been going through a really bad breakup and hasn't been taking it well. Her boyfriend cheated on her with multiple women and gave her an STD. I guess it ended in a big blowout and he trashed her place and threw her around. 3 months ago, Emily noticed that something was wrong and asked her what was up while they were out for lunch. Amy couldn't hold back and spilled all that had happened to Emily, and then begged her not to tell me anything until she decided what she wanted to do. Emily started staying over at her place for a few reasons, helping her fix up her home, support, etc. Then Amy found out that she's pregnant with this butthole's baby, and her mental health plummeted. Their extra hangouts were mostly to do with preparing for this new baby and the pregnancy, including the fashion show, which was maternity wear for both of them. What I was perceiving as jealousy from Amy was actually a longing or an envy of the solid relationship that Emily and I have, not an actual crush on Emily. The crush comment and wifey nickname were literally just girly comments in their words. Amy was reactive to my questioning because she was so deeply betrayed by this guy, and being accused of doing that herself was very hurtful. I didn't even know that Amy was dating anybody. It seems that the butthole has left the province and Amy doesn't want to pursue anything legally. She just wants to move on and be happy. Amy and Emily are 6 weeks apart and were planning on telling me about the matching pregnancies this coming weekend. So, in short, Amy and Emily are best friends. I'm going to be an uncle and then a father, and I get Brother of the Year award for not noticing that anything was going on with her. Well, that is the end of that debacle. I'm very glad it had a happy ending and your sister wasn't actually falling in love with your girlfriend. That would have been unbelievably awkward. What is great though is that, you got to the bottom of it and you all are more wise now and you understand what's going on. Crazy situation, I've got to say. Don't blame yourself, OP. You genuinely thought that something was going on that wasn't. That's fine. Everyone's calm now. Wow, crazy one. Oh, and by the way, congrats to all 3 of you involved in this story on becoming parents very soon. That's sick. My husband is reluctant to be intimate with me after I was in a major accident. I am a 30-year-old woman, and I've been married to my husband, who is 45, for 5 years, and we've been together for 8. Obviously, there's an age gap in our relationship, and whenever we discussed possible health issues or medical care, it was regarding him. But about 4 months ago, I was in a car accident. I was talking on Bluetooth to my husband because I was nervous driving on the icy roads going to our house when another car rounded a corner too quickly and lost control. It was one of those exact wrong moment things, and my car went off the road and into a tree. My husband heard the whole thing, and my last memory before I lost consciousness was him screaming my name. I don't want to get into the bloody details, but I ended up being in the hospital for over a month. I needed multiple surgeries and I've been in physical therapy ever since. I'm finally getting back to a point where I feel like myself again and I'm no longer in pain. I've gained back some of the weight and I look good, if I do say so myself. My husband literally worked out of my hospital room for the entire time I was there. He went home to shower, sleep and look after the dogs, then came right back. He attended all my therapy appointments so that he would know how to better help me recover at home. He was amazing and everything I could ask him to be in that kind of horrible situation. I love him so much. And so yesterday, while shopping, I saw this gorgeous black lingerie set and decided to surprise him. We haven't had sex since before the accident, and every time I try, it feels like he makes an excuse or expresses some concern about some random body part of mine that is no longer injured. He was on his laptop in bed when I came in wearing my new purchases, and I could tell he was taken by surprise. I basically crawled into his lap and started kissing his neck and grinding on him. He was definitely hard, but then he lost it and pushed me away, saying that we shouldn't rush this and he doesn't want to jeopardize my recovery with sex. I was crying by the time he ended the sentence and said, "I'm fine. The doctors say sex is fine." But he was already walking into the bathroom and turning on the shower. I don't know what to think. Is it the scars? Is the memory of me in a hospital bed unable to even sit up by myself repelling him? I'm finally starting to feel good about myself and my body again, and the fact that he won't touch me is really hurting my mental health. It's probably a long shot, but has anyone else experienced this? And just like our first story, guys, I've got a cheeky little update for you. Thank you again for everyone's kind and thoughtful comments. I read all of them even if I didn't respond. And there were over 300 comments and some of them are unbelievable, I'm not gonna lie. Last night when we got in bed, I curled up next to my husband and held him while I basically said, "We've been through a lot. Would you be willing to get therapy with me to make sure that everything is alright for both of us? I love you so much and I don't want any underlying trauma to affect our relationship." He was silent for about 10 seconds and then the floodgates opened. I've only seen him cry once or twice in our entire relationship, at our wedding and the first time I told him I loved him, but I held him while he sobbed for what was probably an hour. He kept apologizing for it and I had to keep saying, "Don't be sorry, I'm here. Cry if you need to cry," and I shed some tears of my own. It was an exhausting but ultimately extremely cathartic experience. When it was all over and he was able to say more than a few words, he told me that there was about 15 minutes when he was sure he'd just heard the love of his life die. Then we got to the hospital and the doctors made it clear they would do everything they could, but the extent of my injuries were extreme and severe. Then he spent hours calling family members, waiting, pacing, and trying to grapple with the fact that I might die and he might be alone. Then I spent 5 days in the ICU, mostly unconscious. He said he's never known fear like that in his life. In the end, we agreed to go to individual and couples therapy, and even touched on the sex thing, wherein he admitted that he knows objectively nothing bad will happen to me if we have sex, but for some reason it's sparking this protective instinct that makes him want to treat me like glass. So we're working on it, and our marriage is amazing. He's the love of my life, and we can get through this. You know what? Something's in the air. It must be this subreddit r/relationships. I'm used to people having, frankly, ridiculously illogical conversations with each other and arguments that make no sense. What I've read here, like the first story, it's just good stuff. You know, situation arises, bit of conflict, sort it out with your words. That is just excellent. I love to see it. And I'm glad you two sorted out your situation. What a horrible thing to go through. I can't even begin to understand the pain and hurt that you both went through. Crazy. I mean, like, what's worse than death, eh? Nothing. But wow, I'm glad that you're both still alive, still together, going strong, working things out. I love you, you pair of legends. My helpful mum invades my privacy and moves stuff around, causing important possessions to be lost and put through the washing machine. I've just this week moved into a flat, and my mum has been helping a lot. She drove my furniture to the new flat and bought me a table and chairs. I'm grateful for this, but she's a very nosy person, and I've always had to hide any personal things for when she visits, as she looks through all my drawers and also moves stuff around all the time, causing me to lose important things. I was having a delivery that couldn't be rescheduled, but I was at work, so she offered to wait for it in the flat. I made sure to hide my important stuff in a zipped up bag, wrapped in clothes in the wardrobe, covered by a duvet. I felt okay about it as I took the precautions, but I stupidly underestimated her nosiness. I had keys to my old flat that need to be handed in before the weekend, which were in a tiny pouch hidden in some jean pockets. My DS games and jewelry were locked in a small safe, also in a wardrobe, the key to which was hidden inside a sock in the inside pocket of a tiny suitcase under the bed. There was also a 3DS in the same suitcase and feminine care items. I pushed it right to the back under the double bed, so it was very hard to reach, and I put a cushion in front to hide it. When I got back, she had done multiple clothes washes, which included all clothes in said bag, the sock in the suitcase, and literally everything in every drawer. Stuff that I'd washed at hers and not even worn yet. This meant that my old flat keys, the key to my safe, and all the other stuff had been through the wash. Of course, I couldn't find barely any of them. My 3DS, headphones, the keys, and other items are all still missing. Not only that, but I've had a gum infection and I'm on antibiotics, which were in a drawer in the kitchen. She rearranged all my drawers and now I can't find them anywhere. Thankfully, I found the painkillers I was taking to help with it in the cupboard in the bathroom, but they were both together in the kitchen. I've been texting her asking where things are, and she gets mad each time, calling me ungrateful, saying that she was trying to help. She can't remember where she moved anything, but this is a huge invasion of privacy. Also, I'm in trouble now as I can't find the flat keys, I can't get to a doctor to get more antibiotics, and I love my 3DS. How can I talk to her about this? She wants to come over again soon, but even when I'm there, I can't let her out of my sights. Well, let me tell you, OP, I don't envy your position right there. That is one invasive mother, and it's all under the pretense, unfortunately, of her thinking in her own mind perhaps, or maybe just using it as an excuse, saying I'm helping you out, when in reality, she's just snooping, like she's doing way too much, clearly. Let's be realistic. Helpful is actually doing laundry, or, you know, hanging things up, or cooking or something like that. Not rummaging through your entire house looking for stuff. Like, that's what she's doing. She has the intent to find secret stuff. And it's obvious. I'm sorry, but it is. Now, my advice to you would be, just don't let her in your house. Go and meet somewhere else. There's no obligation for her to come into your house. If you want to go and see her, which I'm sure you do, go to hers, go out to eat, whatever. Just don't let her in your house, whatever you do. Guys, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. If not, and you're on Spotify or Apple or any other podcast platform, head on over to my YouTube and watch my lovely face speak in real life. Tomorrow, I'm going to ruin his life. I've been with him for 3 years now. We plan on getting married when our lives settle down. I wanted to start a family with him. I loved him more than anyone else in this world. I've sacrificed so much for him. moved away from my home, turned down jobs so I could stay with him, and stood by his side as he started to go back to school. I gave him my world, and he cheats on me. I found out over a month ago. The scumbag got cocky, and I found out he was cheating on me with 2 different women. One is a TA at his university, the other his best friend's girlfriend. I am livid. I write this post choking back venom. I loved him so much. He was my world, but now he will be the world I burn to nothing but ash. I pay for everything since he quit his job last year to go to school. I was more than happy to help him. I make enough to support us both. The only upside is the student loans are in his name with no connection to me. It will hurt to push the scumbag out to sea, but I will survive. I've held out for a month, enough time to create what I call the day his world burns. Tomorrow we are hosting a party. I arranged for his family to come, but my family will sadly not be able to make it. I've packed everything valuable already, and the suitcase is in the back of my car. My brother will come during the event tomorrow to take the car that is in my name that the dirtbag drives to my parents' house. The joint account, which is all my money anyway, is already empty. The event will be great, and he thinks it's for us to announce our engagement to his family. What will happen in reality is I will announce my departure from his life. I've already taken a job out of state, and I've lined up a new place to live. I will start by telling everyone what he's into. The screenshots of him asking his friend's girlfriend to pee on him, and the many other fantasies his degenerate mind came up with will be passed around. I will then hand him the notice to vacate, as I've already broken our lease. We need to be out by the end of the month. I will end by informing him I've already reported he was sleeping with the TA for one of his classes the previous semester to the university, and that I'm sad I won't see the fallout from that. His friend also has a message for him that I will deliver, informing him that his friend group never wants to see him again as well. And with that, I will leave. I won't look back. I'll set his life on fire and I'll walk away. Now, a commenter below this post has said, it seems like a lot of effort to expend on someone that's not really worth your time. I'd just leave. Tape the picture to the fridge and go. But such is OP's hurt that this is what they replied. The truth hurts. More so because what you say is 100% true. He is not worth it. He is a cheating scumbag who ruined my life. The sooner I cut him off, the better. But I lost everything the night I found out he was cheating on me. A piece of me died that night. Maybe I'm terrible, but thinking of just walking away without making him lose everything that he took from me, it kills me inside. Now, that post was originally posted on the 11th of June, but just yesterday, on the 13th, we got an update. Yesterday, I was supposed to ruin his life. They say that hubris is the downfall of man. Yesterday, I planned to ruin his life in front of his entire family. I worked for a month to create the scenario that would cut him the deepest. I'd patiently waited for the chance to storm out of his world in a blaze of glory. And then I hit the front page of Reddit. I realized I'd screwed up when he wasn't answering my texts and hadn't shown up hours after he told me he'd be home. I'd hoped it was a happy accident, literally a car killing him before I had the chance. But no. I don't know how many men in the world are currently cheating on their soon-to-be fiancé with their best friend's girlfriend and a TA. However, the one who mattered in my plan found my Reddit post. I called his mother and found out that he'd run home to his parents. He told them we had a fight and that we were probably through. I was, and still am, livid at myself. His mother asked me what had happened as he left out a few details, so I decided to tell her that he was cheating on me with a TA and his friend's girlfriend. I soon heard shouting before she hung up. I texted my ex that he had until morning to return my freaking car before I reported it stolen and sent the screenshots of all his texts to his parents and siblings. My car was sitting in my driveway when I woke up. I contemplated sending the screenshots anyway, but his mother sent me a heartfelt text yesterday apologizing for her son's actions, and I feel they deserve to be spared from his degenerate doings. Me and my father will be moving all my stuff today, and I won't be coming back after that. I know you'll be reading this, you cheating frick. You're a cowardly POS. Just know I am not above sending out all the screenshots if you ever dare to come back into my life. Oh, and your ex-friends all know about your pee and scat fetish. I can't control what they do with that information, so good luck with that. You know guys, for a platform as large as Reddit is, I do often wonder why I don't come across more stories where people involved find out about the original post. I mean, these stories get viewed by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people with tens of thousands of upvotes. They're so popular, it's crazy. But I do believe that that is the first story I've ever come across in over 3 years of doing this in which someone's Reddit post has ruined their plan of revenge. That is crazy. Alright, well, if you thought the first story of today's episode was a bit mad, how about this for a title? My ex lied about vaccinating our immune-compromised 8-year-old daughter. She now has chickenpox and is in the hospital. I want my ex as far away from her as possible. Me and my ex split up before our daughter's birth. There were a variety of reasons for this that I won't get into here. One of them though was her anti-science beliefs. She's an anti-vaxxer and doesn't trust science or medicine at all. Well, this sucks because our daughter was born premature and immunocompromised. We have 50-50 custody of her, but due to her condition and my wife's anti-science beliefs, we argue constantly about how to handle her. Well, recently our daughter has made incredible progress and last year was given the go-ahead to get vaccinated for certain viruses, including chickenpox and the flu. My ex went crazy about this and started making my life a living hell, and threatened up and down to take me to court. Around this time, I also got a new job that paid a considerable amount more than my old. When this happened, I decided I wanted to move my girl into a private school that has a program for immune-compromised children, and I offered to pay 100% of tuition. The only problem, for my ex at least, is that this school requires students to be fully vaccinated, up to their medically allowed limits in my daughter's case. My ex fought me up and down on this and we ended up in court. The judge agreed with me and ordered my daughter to be vaccinated. My ex had a full breakdown, but in the end agreed, only on the condition that she get to take her to lessen the emotional damage and make sure the doctor doesn't poison her. I demanded the medical forms confirming this and she agreed. So my daughter finally got vaccinated and last fall started at her awesome new school. Well, last week my daughter got incredibly sick and had to be rushed to the hospital from school. She somehow had contracted varicella, chickenpox, despite being vaccinated for it. I've been stressed out from the minute I got the call and confused as heck as to how she got it. My daughter must have picked up on this and thought I was mad at her, because when I was visiting her in the hospital, she decided to tell me the secret mummy promised to make me keep. It turns out my ex didn't vaccinate her. She made my daughter lie about it. Instead, she's been using special oils and salts to keep her from getting sick. What about the forms I got saying she was vaccinated? They're fake. I called the doctor and it turns out she never went in and he never signed any forms confirming she was vaccinated. So my ex lied and faked the forms to convince me my daughter had got vaccinated. I am fuming to say the least. My daughter is in hospital because my ex decided to let her beliefs come before our child's health. My ex doesn't know that I know yet, and I told my daughter not to tell her. I want her gone now. How on earth do I approach this to make sure my ex suffers for this? I have the form she handed me and the text from the day she took her. I also have the doctor on record saying he never signed off on these and that the ones I have are forged. I'm planning on speaking to a lawyer, but I'd like to know what to do. Thank you. Now guys, good news. We have an update. Wow, that last post got real popular it seems, for better and for worse. Seeing as you guys were interested in it, I thought I would come back with an update. Well, a lot has happened since that day. My daughter is safe with me and was let out of the hospital about a week ago. She's getting better every day. I know though, you guys want the full story, so here it is. After I made that post, I took the advice given to me, and the next time I saw my daughter, I told her that it was wrong of me to ask her to keep secrets, and that it's okay to tell her mum. Along with that, I saw a lawyer recommended to me by a trusted party. When I went to see him, he told me that this is a case lawyers salivate over, and that my ex is in a lot of trouble. I immediately filed for emergency custody of my daughter. I also got in contact with the doctor again and explained the situation fully to him. He says that while he will not be getting lawyers involved, that he wishes for me to submit the evidence to the police and file a report. Along with this, my lawyer has gotten into contact with the court that originally ordered us to vaccinate our daughter and has handed over everything I gave to him. He's advised me to stay quiet on this matter, so I'll leave it at my ex is in a lot of trouble with them. During this time, my ex started to get suspicious. Maybe it was because a friend told her about a post on Reddit and she freaked out, who knows? A few days later, when I saw her at the hospital, we had an altercation. She became hysterical and yelled various threats and insults at me, including telling me that I want to poison our daughter right in front of our sick child. She was escorted out of the building and the head nurse has banned her from coming back. After this, she sent me a barrage of texts telling me that I'm a monster and that if she had vaccinated her, that she'd be dead by now. This was sent to my lawyer. As he puts it, she's what lawyers dream of when they hear who's on the other side of the court. Outside of this, I've been advised to stay as quiet as possible, so I'll leave it with this. This week, I received emergency custody of my daughter until our custody hearing later this year. I've heard that the DA is slowly getting ready to move forward with a multitude of charges against my ex, and that will land her in jail soonish. And that's really it for now. I'm going to follow the advice given by my lawyer and say nothing else to anyone. I don't want the media involved in this for a few reasons, so I've left this as vague as possible. When this is all said and done, if the interest is still there, I may come back again. But for now, thanks for the advice in the original thread. Me and my daughter appreciate you. And guys, unfortunately, that is where we're up to in this story. That's all I've got for you. You actually bought that, didn't you? For a split second. Did you think that I'd do that to you? Of course not. I would never. Here it is then. 3 years after that update. It's the second update, the one we've all been waiting for, which clears up everything. Hello again, everyone out there. 3 years ago, I made a post about how my ex lied about vaccinating our daughter. Soon after, I gave an update and disappeared over the horizon. I had completely forgotten about making that post, as the last few years dealing with a global pandemic and an immunocompromised daughter have aged me 3 decades. But I saw a post recently talking about my own posts and it came back like a ton of bricks. After wrestling to get back into this account, here I am. I hope you're all still interested in an update. Well, to give the short answer first, I have full custody of my daughter and my ex is barred from having any contact with her. The long answer, my court battle between my ex and me was a grueling process, one of the worst periods of my life. It took over 5 months from the time I got emergency custody to get full custody of my daughter. In retrospect, those 5 months were not as long as they felt, but they felt like the longest months of my life at that point. My ex's harassment at that time got worse, even coming to my house and attempting to force herself in to take our daughter. She was arrested for this and charged with attempted forced entry. Before she could bail herself out, the DA decided to throw the book at her for forging medical documents. She ended up spending a month in jail for this, which unfortunately got our custody case continued. The upside of this was I was given a protective order for me and my daughter, one that bit her in the butt when we finally got in front of a judge. I was given full custody of my daughter. My ex and her lawyer annoyed the judge by trying to claim that I'd planned this all from the start, forcing her into a corner to vaccinate our daughter so I could use her response to initiate the custody battle. Her actions, her upcoming hearing for committing felony forgery and forced entry, along with the protective order, convinced the judge that my ex was more than a danger to our daughter. She lost all custodial rights and as of now is not legally allowed to contact her in any form. My protective order was extended by 2 years as well, but I didn't need it as it was only a few months later that she went to prison. My ex pleaded out. They dropped the forced entry charge and she only got 2 years in prison for the forgery, but was still hit with the felony. She was released early due to COVID though. Since then, luckily, I've had no contact with my ex outside of getting the child support I am owed. I'm not really inclined to keep tabs on her personal life, but I know that she went off the conspiracy deep end. She is now a full QAnon supporter and dating someone who was involved in the January 6th intersection. Other than that, she's disappeared from my daughter's life entirely. As for me and my daughter, the past few years have been a living nightmare. We moved to a new state and I had to put her into fully online schooling. But our lives are great, and amazingly, my daughter was able to get the COVID vaccine only a month ago and is clear to go to physical school once the summer ends. This saga of my life has taught me so many things. I'm grateful every day to have my daughter with me, safe and in a place where she can slowly grow and get healthier. It's kind of touching that so many people are interested after all this time in a normal guy like me and my daughter. I genuinely hope this is the last update I have to make. Thank you for your interest, and see you all over the next horizon. And there we go, 3 years on from the original post, we have a fantastic update, but wow. Did that not take a while? I can only imagine the stress and just anger that you were going through every day, OP. Having to look after an immunocompromised daughter in the first place is tough, but then having your ex be like this at the same time? Jesus, somebody call a doctor. Well, call a doctor and actually go and don't forge your documents this time. Yeah. Sweet. Mum thinks it would be hilarious to have her kid hold up a sign saying he's been kidnapped. I am a former police officer who had to retire due to being badly injured. But this was one of my last calls before the incident that forced me into retirement. I worked for a small town police department with only 5 or 6 officers on duty at any given time, and we each covered a vast swathe of land. My beat mainly was the rural area and county highway that passes throughout the little town. One clear sunny afternoon, I'm doing speed enforcement on the highway when my radio crackles to life of a
possible kidnapping in progress.
And the dispatcher proceeds to provide the details of the make and model of the car, including a female driver with short blonde hair. I proceed to get onto my computer to see if there are any more details given about this, and sure enough, there is in the call log. It provides even more details, saying RP, reporting party, reports there is a young kid sitting in the hatchback part of the vehicle with a sign that says, "Help, I've been kidnapped, call 911, and the hands appear to be tied together. While the call is within our jurisdiction, they're nowhere near me, so there's nothing I can do at the moment besides other officers and sheriff deputies who are already looking for the vehicle. All is quiet for the next 10 minutes. Everybody is behaving themselves and driving the speed limit when my radio crackles to life again.
We're getting another call regarding the reported kidnapping. They're now traveling south on County Highway 123.
And my ears perk up and my heart starts to race as the vehicle is coming in my direction and will be here any minute. As I'm waiting for the call, dispatch gets 3 more calls from fellow drivers who have seen this young kid holding up the "Help, I've been kidnapped" sign and had called 911 to report it. With this stretch of highway being very flat, I'm able to see cars miles and miles away, especially if I'm using binos. And sure enough, here comes the van, and as the van passes me, I can see the female driver who matches the description given by the RPs, and the kid sitting up against the sidewall in the hatchback area. I don't pull out right away, just in case this is an honest-to-God kidnapping. I don't want to spook the driver and get into a high-speed chase. Not to mention, I'm completely alone, and in this type of situation, you want to have a decent amount of backup in case they decide to run, shoot it out, or whatever. So, I wait until she's a good mile or 2 away, then I pull out and tail her from that distance until I can get some backup. Luckily, there is a highway patrol barracks not too far away, and they heard my call for assistance. Just as we pass the road that leads to the highway patrol barracks, I see 4 trooper vehicles pull out behind me, so I fall back and let the troopers take lead. In case this turns into a chase, they'd already be in position. While we're getting into position to stop the van, we're talking about how we're going to approach the situation. Are we going to do a soft traffic stop and proceed as a regular traffic stop and just pull the driver out of the vehicle? Or are we going to do a full felony stop? We decided to do a full felony stop. So we spread out across all 4 lanes of traffic and all turn our lights and blip our sirens at the same time. The female doesn't pull over to the side of the highway in the breakdown lane, but instead slammed on the brakes and stops in the middle of the highway. We all position our vehicles to give us the maximum amount of coverage in case of a gunfight, then get out with weapons drawn while ordering the female driver out of the vehicle. We should have known something was up when as soon as she got out of the vehicle, she started screaming, "It was a freaking joke!" But right now, we're not too interested in what she has to say. The point man keeps telling her to keep walking backwards until we tell her to stop and then get down on the ground. She complies and she's cuffed. Next, we turn our attention to the female passenger, who we didn't know at the time as we couldn't see her face, but she was the female driver's 13-year-old daughter. We ordered her backwards to get on the ground and cuffed her as well, and we did this for the next 4 passengers who were riding in the 4 seats in the back of the van. Once we got all perceived threats out of the vehicle and secured, 2 troopers went up to clear the vehicle, while another trooper and myself rescued the young boy who was bawling from the hatchback, and we put him in the back of one of our vehicles to get him away from his perceived kidnappers. The whole time, mind you, the driver and front female passengers kept yelling, "It's a joke! He's my son or my brother! I can't believe you guys!" So, after securing everybody in separate vehicles, we start to get to the bottom of this situation. The first person we talk to is the young boy, who has since calmed down after the female trooper got him a stuffed dinosaur and a snack, and we begin to start asking him questions. This is when we learned the whole thing was the female driver's and her daughter's sick idea of a funny prank. Since the van was full, they decided to put the young kid in the hatchback. They then thought it would be funny to make a sign saying, "Help, I've been kidnapped," and have the young boy hold it up while someone else in the van record the reaction of other drivers after they read the sign. Oh wow. Apparently, they'd been doing it all day and just didn't get caught until they reached our area. After talking to the other passengers, who were all under the age of 16, I learned it was mainly the idea of the mother and teen daughter. And after some discussion with the county DA on how it should be handled, we were told to kick the 4 teenagers in the back loose with no charges, to write the teenage daughter the juvenile equivalent of a ticket for inducing panic, and last but not least, save the best for mum. I opened the back door of my vehicle so I could talk to the mum. As soon as I did, she started to get out of the vehicle when I told her to stay put. She said, "Why? Don't you need to take the handcuffs off me so I can sign the ticket you're gonna give me, right?" I said, "It's not quite that simple. I'm afraid you're in a bit more trouble than a simple ticket. You're going to be charged with several felonies." This is when she lost it and started screaming over and over again, "It was a freaking joke. I can't believe nobody can take a freaking joke anymore. It was a joke. Now uncuff me or I'm going to have my husband sue you for unlawful detention." I proceeded to read her Miranda rights. All the while, she starts sobbing, with no tears I might add, while muttering, "It was a freaking joke." After I finished with her Miranda warning, I asked her if she was willing to talk to me. She told me to F off. So I did just that and shut the door to let her wait for the transport vehicle. By this time, the husband and father had shown up at the scene to collect his kids and the vehicle and was filled in on the situation. All he could do is shake his head and say, "This isn't the first time she's done stupid rubbish like this. It's just the first time she's been caught. I've warned her in the past not to do it because I knew it would end up in a situation like this one." After about 10 minutes, the transport van showed up and took her away, and I went back to a quiet afternoon of catching speeders. The female driver was charged with the following: 7 counts of inducing panic, all misdemeanor. 6 counts of felony child endangerment, 1 for each kid she had in the vehicle. The reason it was a felony is that her actions put her children's lives in danger by forcing us to do a felony stop over a prank. And finally, 1 count of having an unrestrained child. She decided to put her 6-year-old son in the hatchback of the van because they didn't have any room up front. While none of those kids should have been back there, I'd rather one of the older kids instead of the 6-year-old. The reason why? Because the other boys were too tall and wouldn't have been comfortable back there. I mean, look, as pranks go, that is right up there for me as one of the funniest of all time. If you know Sam Pepper and you know the prank that he pulled where he convinced one best friend that his other best friend was dead, wow, this is a similar level. I mean, that's really, really good, isn't it? In all seriousness, this is so dangerous. And the fact that this woman said, "What? It was just a joke. Fine, give me a ticket and I'll go," just shows how stupid she is. Like, I'm sorry, but that emergency stop alone, slamming the brakes in the middle of the motorway, that could have caused such a serious accident. Oh, it's unreal. Let's carry on. I am also a bit guilty. So, picture this. You get off work after an overnight shift. You want to start playing Pokemon Go. It's a warm day and you work a block from the beach or boardwalk. Now with all this, anyone would want to go on a walk, but this was my mistake. As many of you will know, working in security or customer service, or any job that has to deal with people, will know the beach is a hotspot for the most snooty of people. During my walk, I was off to the side minding my own business when this woman came up to me and pulls on my arm. Me, confused, asked her if everything is okay and if she needed something. My mistake. This lady demands I watch her child while she takes pictures on the beach. Now, to this person, I am a total stranger, no relation at all. So I say no and start to walk away, as one should in this situation. She grabs me and starts saying that I need to watch her kid. I pop my shoulder joint and slink my arm out of her grasp. I walk maybe a few blocks and pop my shoulder back in and go back to paying attention to Pokemon Go when I feel a tug on my pants. I look up confused and I feel the tug again. I look down and there is this woman's kid. He politely asked for water, so I gave him my extra water bottle and locate the mother. This is where I get the idea. I teach this kid the C word. After I make sure he has a firm grasp on this word, I tell him to introduce to her his new word. I think it was maybe 5 minutes. Poplio is a pain to catch. And then I hear that super loud yelling all kids do. But instead of the random normal screaming, it is the C word screamed. And it was loud. Every head in the area turns to look the direction of the kid, who was repeatedly, and at the top of his lungs, screaming the C word. Thinking I've got to make myself sparse, I quickly turn around and walk into an alley between two hotels. I hear the kid continuously scream the word. I get to my car, and that is when I start laughing my butt off. I've got no clue what happened after I left the beach. I'm sure I'll hear something about this tonight. I'll update if I do. See, this is what I'm saying, guys. This is the best policy. If any of you listening and watching right now spot a Karen out in the wild or have an interaction like this with an entitled parent, this is the best thing to do. Just mug them off. Simple as that. Just destroy them. Take the mick out of them. Do what this geezer did. Great stuff. Love it. I wish everyone that met an entitled parent did something like this. I would much rather ask for forgiveness than permission. My wife and I have a pretty nice backyard. It takes a lot of work to maintain it, but it pays off because we all love sitting out there and looking out at our backyard as we eat meals at our kitchen table. Recently, we heard voices coming from the backyard. I went out to investigate what the issue was, and there are a bunch of people doing a senior high school picture session in our backyard. There were 6 high schoolers total among the others present. As I approached them, I asked them what they thought they were doing. The one woman barely even glanced at me, dismissively saying we had such a beautiful yard and would make for great senior pictures. It turns out she was our neighbour from across the street that I'd never met face to face, just the polite waves as you drive by each other. Let me tell you, it was a less than stellar first impression. They made no effort to move, further engage in conversation, nor leave my property. They simply stopped talking to me, continued giving each other pose directions, and continued snapping pictures. I just stood there for a moment, stunned. As they started walking around me to set up in a new position by our pond, I snapped out of it, and I made it clear that I was none too fond of them trespassing on my property. To which the woman said, and I quote, "I would much rather ask for forgiveness than permission." It wasn't just the fact she said it. It wasn't how she said it. It was the fact that she said it multiple times while I was making it clear I wasn't happy with them being there. After getting frustrated with the conversation going nowhere, I coldly quit back. That doesn't work so well when the owner has a gun. After that, I walked back inside to speak to my wife regarding how much of a deal we wanted to make about this. Well, we were on the same page. We had to make sure this neighbour knew she was not welcome to just trespass in our yard whenever she wanted, especially our backyard. I walked back outside to confront them again to make them leave, but they were already gone. I guess my comment and demeanour hit home and made them feel like it was a good idea to leave. I know, not a great ending to the story. This story could have ended a lot of different ways, but I'll happily accept an ending where it didn't escalate into a big confrontation and they simply left. We haven't caught them in our backyard again, but that doesn't mean she won't try again or won't just wait until we leave. Sorry guys, I just need to take a quick second to understand exactly what she said. I would much rather ask for forgiveness than permission. That is so nuts. I'm sorry, but it really is. Like, I don't want to get deep here, but chuck that into any other context. Maybe getting criminal now. I mean, trespassing is criminal, but think about much more serious stuff. That is such a mental thing to say. How about this? She then goes on and kills a man, because she doesn't like them. Now, instead of asking, I don't know, his wife's permission to do that, she instead asked for forgiveness from his wife for killing her husband. Now look, I know it's a little bit far-fetched, but that is the level we're talking here. Ridiculous. Now guys, our final story of today's episode is an update from one I read a couple of months ago. If you haven't yet seen it, link down below in the description, in the pinned comment, and also behind the I button right now if you're watching on YouTube. The title is Mother is Impersonating Me. And a quick update, this person's dad forced them to either quit their job or half their hours, yet refused to support them financially despite the fact they were a minor. It was a pretty crazy first story. Go and listen to it first. Here we go then. Basically, things have escalated, and my mother has started calling into my work under my name and acting like a butthole to my manager, saying that I can't work today. I came into work today and everybody was shocked to see me because apparently I'd called in a few hours ago and said I was sick. I agreed with my parents about a week or two ago that I would drop to 1 day a week starting next weekend. When my mother picked me up from work yesterday, she changed her mind and told me that I wouldn't be allowed work today. No reason at all, she just did a 180. I reasoned with her and said that today would be my last Sunday shift, but she threatened to call in sick or quit on my behalf unless I listened to her. Anyways, I woke up today ready to call in sick, but my dad took my side and told my mum that we'd made an agreement for next weekend and that it wasn't fair on me to order me around like this. I thought it was all sorted, and my dad even offered to drive me into work. Fast forward about half an hour, and I arrived there to find out that my mum had called in sick under my name while I'd been on my way to work. She never told me she'd cancelled my shifts, so I guess it was just to spite me. Well, I ended up in a very awkward situation, and I had to explain the whole story about my mother to 4 concerned managers. What the heck do I do when I come home? Impersonating me like that has to be illegal. Now my mum is gaslighting me and telling me that she never called in and is furious at me for even suggesting that she did. What do I say to her to make sure this never happens again? Or even to make her admit that she did it? Well, unfortunately, my friend, judging by this post and your previous one, there is nothing you can say, nothing you can do, nothing you can say when it comes to the truth. When it comes to your mother, that is. She is a wrong'un, and I also don't even know if those lyrics were correct. Can we get those lyrics up on screen? Were they right? Get in the comments, let me know. And also, if you do know the song that I'm referencing there, keep holding on. Wow. My younger brother thinks he's entitled to live with me forever. So, a little backstory. I am a 33-year-old woman, and I've been helping out my younger brother, James, who is 30, for the past 6 years. He didn't have enough money for an apartment rent on his own, and he didn't feel comfortable roommating with a stranger. So we split my 2-bedroom apartment, and it's helped me save so that I can buy my own place soon. But he went through struggles. He lost his full-time job, he got really out of shape from just sitting at his computer all day. Thanks to the pandemic, the government paid him to sit at home for over a year. Now he's having trouble keeping a job and is just about broke. He's also the worst roommate ever. He never cleans up or helps around the house at all, and he's been short or late with rent several times this year. I'm getting kinda fed up. I'm getting married in the new year, and I feel it's time we go our separate ways. When I told him I was getting married and moving out eventually, he said, I would rather keep our situation and just move in with you and split the rent 3 ways. I told him no, not only do I not want to live with him anymore, but he is untrustworthy with rent and we don't want to be stuck with a more expensive place if he can't afford his parts. He got mad at that and is now being all huffy. Our mum claims he ranted to her that if I don't take him with me, he would be homeless. Mum doesn't want him moving back to her place either, but has asked I take him with me since she doesn't want him to be homeless. I'm like, what? I'm not his keeper. It's his own fault for his situation, and I've been very forgiving. I could have kicked him out for all the times he was late on rent, and our own mum won't take him back, but is asking me and my fiance to look after him instead? How stupid is that? He's 30 years old, not a child, and I'm not his mother. I'm done looking after him as if he is my responsibility. I don't get how he thinks it's rational to demand I bring him with me when I'm getting married and want to start my own life. Well, to put it simply, it's definitely not rational. Simple as that. It's also very poor from your mum, by the way. The fact that she's saying to you, no, you look after him, despite the fact that she doesn't even want to do it herself. That is poor parenting. But hey, look, I don't know what your brother's been through, but it's time for him to step up. He's 30. Come on. How dare you hire my publicly available e-bike? Sometimes I wonder, Are all entitled people really just entitled? Or are they also really, really, really stupid? Maybe both at the same time, because I can't help think otherwise. Backstory. Today I was visiting and helping family, while my girlfriend happened to be visiting her family. They live not too far away from where my family lives, and so my girlfriend decided to grab a bus instead of a train and hop out near where I was so that we could meet for a while. We go for some coffee in the city, and afterwards she figured she'd grab a public e-bike so that she could catch her train. So she grabs her smartphone, pulls up the app of an e-bike rental company where she had an account, and thanks to the power of Google Maps, she soon located a bike near us that was available for rental. I was quite intrigued by all of this, so I tagged along to see this miracle unfold for myself. Sure, I know how common GPS has become, but I still think it's pretty cool to see how companies are using all that to their advantage like this, and to the customer's advantage, I might add. We follow her phone's directions, and it leads us to an obviously available e-bike. However, it's sitting in what appears to be a front yard. No lock gates though, so my girlfriend figured she'd make sure. She punches in the bike's number into her app, and she immediately gets a confirmation. And just like that, the bike's unlocked for her to take. So she does just that. As she's taking the bike out, some lunatic comes out screeching that my girlfriend is stealing his e-bike. This is not yours. I just rented it through the official app. It's mine now, my girlfriend says. No, it's mine. You took it from my private property. That's illegal, the guy says in return. No, what's illegal here is you putting this on private property in the first place, my girlfriend retorts. Now, if you'll excuse me, and we both walk away. The guy runs around us, blocks our path, and goes on a tirade. I'm going to call the company right now and report you for stealing my bike. You're going to be in trouble. And sure enough, he calls and even puts his phone on speaker. Now this I gotta see, my girlfriend says. And so we wait it out. The backlash. Hello? Someone is stealing my e-bike, the guy says. What is your customer ID? Where was the bike located, sir? And can you tell me its number? The woman from support asks. The man gives his information and then says, it was in my front yard, then this female dog just took it. We hear some typing noises through the phone. That bike was registered as publicly available up to 5 minutes ago. Now it's being used by an account that isn't yours. I suggest you don't press the matter any further so you don't force me to take further action. No, this is my bike and this dog took it from my yard. I need you to do something right now. At this time, my girlfriend hands me the bike to hold. Very well, sir, says the woman. I've now closed your account due to violations of our terms of service. You will not get your rental credits back due to indirect harassment of another customer. We do not tolerate nor condone such behavior. Thank you, my girlfriend yells at the phone, and in a normal voice again proceeds with, we'll be on our way now, and she starts to walk away, so I obviously follow her. The guy takes another sprint and blocks us again. No, you can't have that bike, he yells, after which the person on the phone responds, Madam, do you need me to call law enforcement? My girlfriend walks up to the dude and actually shoves him out of the way and answers, no, but we may need an ambulance later because if this guy tries to harass me again, then I see no other option but to defend myself. Men these days, always harassing us poor women. And I couldn't help but laugh. I mean, who was harassing who there? My girlfriend isn't a powerhouse or anything, but she does know how to throw her weight around and back it up as well. Unless you're armed with a gun or just as experienced in martial arts as she is, I don't see anyone taking her on just like that. Definitely not this beer-bellied guy. The guy looks shocked at this point, while the woman on the phone continues. Hello, sir? Madam, do I need to provide further assistance through law enforcement? If I don't get a reaction in 30 seconds, then I will escalate this incident. No, it's good, he murmurs. My girlfriend yells, thanks again. This is why I'm a customer of yours, and we continue on our way. The aftermath. We decided to at least walk down the street and around the corner. Also because the original idea was for my girlfriend to take off, and well, 2v1 gives you better odds. But the guy doesn't follow nor bother us anymore, so we parted ways. She goes off to the train station by e-bike to catch her train. She made it in the nick of time, while I walk over there to grab my train going a little later. Honestly, you guys, I kind of feel sorry for our Ken. Stupid, for sure, but also sincere. he actually did call the hotline and complained. And when push came to shove, he didn't press on. Sorta, I think he realised the obvious, but even so, I don't know about this. Which is exactly why I sometimes cannot help but wonder, is it entitlement or sheer stupidity? One way or the other. I hope it's lesson learned. Don't try to confiscate publicly available items and try to make it look as if they're yours. And neither entitlement nor stupidity needs to go unpunished in my book. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, let me know down in the comments, what do you reckon? Entitlement, stupidity, or a bit of both? I think it's just a combination of the two, to be honest. Like, the thing is with entitled people, sometimes you get innocent ones that genuinely don't mean harm. And I feel like this guy kind of leaned towards that. He just had the bike. He just somehow put the bike in his garden, and that's it. He wanted to keep it and use it himself. I don't think he was being unbelievably entitled or anything. I think he was just trying to be a bit clever, stupid really, and keep the bike for himself. I was under the impression that all companies like this had it set so that you couldn't put bikes, public bikes, onto private property. You have to leave them in public areas or your ride just continues and you keep paying money. I don't know, maybe that didn't happen here, or maybe he found a way to put the bike onto his private property without the software knowing. Whatever happened. Definitely entitled, but I think more stupid. Aunt tries to steal family heirloom. Thinks she deserves an apology for being called out. My aunt's is, to put it politely, a complete piece of work. The more accurate description probably violates the terms of service. She isn't overly well liked in my family. However, my grandparents, especially my grandmother, believe that they can't exclude her from family events based purely on their personal feelings for her. My aunt is an extremely shallow and materialistic individual. She's tried to get my grandpa to sell property that's been in the family for 100 years so the money could be split between my uncles and my dad. This story, however, involves a very old pocket watch. I don't know the details, but the watch is Swiss and very old. It is gold with platinum inlay and is extremely valuable. Now, this watch has been passed down from father to son for a long time. It's going to be passed on to my dad and eventually me. My aunt hates this. She's tried to convince my grandpa to give it to my uncle, second oldest, and for my dad to just say my uncle should have it. Neither have agreed. It all came to a head on Saturday. We were at my grandparents' house for a birthday celebration. Everything was going well, people are having pleasant conversations. My daughter, who is 5 years old, and younger cousins are having fun playing, and somehow not causing more noise than should be humanly possible. It's been a wonderful day, until my aunt goes to leave. She's saying her goodbyes, everything's good, and then my daughter pipes up and says, "Don't forget to put back the watch, Auntie." I look at my daughter and ask what watch, and she says the fancy gold one. My grandpa walks to his study and comes back out asking if she's taken the watch. My uncle looks at my aunts and says she didn't. To cut a long story short, she is made to hand over her handbag, and lo and behold, the watch is inside. Everyone is furious. My uncle can't believe what she's done, and my grandpa wants her out of the house. This would all be bad enough, but to make this even better, she calls me that night and tries to scold me for raising a daughter who was a snoop. She'd seen my aunt while running around and playing, and that I needed to do a better job as a parent. I just laughed and said she's hardly one to talk, given, and hung up on her. I'm not surprised she tried to steal the item, but even I am surprised that she tried to make it my fault that she's been shunned by the family. Yeah, like, lady, maybe consider taking some of your own advice. Imagine calling a 5-year-old a snoop when you're the one stealing. It really is unbelievable. Oh, wait, what? A kid caught me stealing something and then told their mum. That's bad parenting. It's not bad on my behalf for stealing something from my own family. No, it's the kid's fault and their mum. Makes a lot of sense. Lady berates me for trying to help her. So, this happened yesterday, and I'm still a bit angry about it, but proud of myself at the same time for sticking up against someone like her, as I can be a timid person most of the time. A quick bit of backstory. I was severely bullied in high school, shoved into lockers, beaten up in the bathrooms, purposely tripped or slapped, and was mentally tortured with belittling words and threats. It caused me to have 4 years of depression and self-harm after high school, and I honestly believed I was worthless. It made me have anxiety whenever I heard insults. I'm doing better now after a good family friend who is a psychologist and a Catholic priest helped me to steadily overcome the trauma. I think if it wasn't for him, I could have taken my life. On to the story. I work at a call center on the phones for sales and customer care assistance with their accounts, or if a package goes missing. Halfway through my shift, I get a call, and after I did my greeting, the woman goes off on a rant about how her package could not have arrived later than what you all says it is. The USPS tracking she means, but she didn't get that we are separate from them. Don't know how. When I was able to get a word in, I first tried to explain that it perhaps was another driver and he does later shifts, then asked if she did receive her package. At this point, the customer was already shouting, "No, I did not receive it. The dang package was not in the mailbox like you claim it is." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. We can start a claim and resend you the new item at no additional charge." "You take me for a fool, little girl? Yeah, that's what I'll call you." I was a bit surprised by her reply because mostly people are accepting of that offer. Also, I know I sound young, but girl, really? Not at all. I'm offering that we resend you a new item without having to pay for it. We just have to send you a claim form. Oh, heck no, you freaking little girl. Just give me back the money I pay for the stuff. You know what? I can get it back faster with the bank. How? I thought. She then goes on an insult rant, calling me many names and that I was useless and not doing my job properly, as well as making crude comments against my voice and job. I've learned to take these words with a pinch of salt, but certain words can still trigger my anxiety. When she paused, I said plainly and calmly, "Mom, if you cannot be civil and allow me to help you, then I'm going to have to end this call." She interrupted me again. No, you don't get to threaten me, you freaking little girl. You're a worthless little dog with a trashy job and you won't amount to anything. You're worthless." Yes, she called me worthless. That is one of my trigger words, as my bully would call me that a lot. But in this situation, my anger came out instead of timidness, and I reply calmly with, "Well, that is your opinion of me based solely on ignorance of your own creation. Despite me doing nothing but offer you help, instead you mock and insult me. I pity you, as no one will want to help you if your actions continue to be belligerent. I bid you a good evening." "How dare you?" And then I just hang up. I hung up on her and then reported her to a supervisor. I told her what she'd said and how belligerent she was, and she said that she'll listen back to the call and decide what to do, which means that they may give her a warning or she'll be banned, depending on how often she's done this. Though I did get a little slap on the wrist for my comment to her at the end. To me, it was worth it. My hands were shaking afterwards for a while as my anxiety kicked in, but I'm better now and proud that for the first time in a long time, I stood up to someone and told them off and had the upper hand for once. Wow, mad respect, OP, and power to you. It's just a shame that bullies like this exist, and not only in school. Like, any age, there are bullies everywhere. Imagine how much simpler and nicer OP's life would have been if she didn't get bullied in school and didn't have to deal with horrible people like this every day. Ugh, sucks, but I guess that's just the human race, guys. Good stuff. We are a good set of people. And as for your little comment at the end, I don't care what your boss says. I loved it. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit unprofessional, but on the whole, you were very, very good there. Calm, collected, and you spoke sense. You can't just be talked down to by a customer like that. It's not good. It's not nice. You're probably one of the only people in customer service to ever stand up to this woman. And you know what? Fair play to you, because someone's got to do it, clearly, or she's just going to keep going like this and no one's ever going to stop her. Am I the butthole for forcing out a fart to get my mum to stop asking my girlfriend invasive questions in front of the whole family? I know what it sounds like, but I swear it's a desperate situation. So, I, a 23-year-old man, have been with my 22-year-old girlfriend for 7 months. She has a visible scar on her neck and she hates to be asked about it and hates to tell the story behind it. Believe it or not, even I don't know the story yet, but I'm waiting until she's comfortable to share. She's met my family several times, and of course, mum and aunts asked her about her scar, like 3 or 4 times in just a couple of hours. Then at dinner, then during movie time, etc. It got bothersome and my girlfriend looked uncomfortable, and I could just tell that the question itself was bringing her sadness. I told my mum to stop asking such invasive questions about the scar, and every time she'd say, "Okay, I won't ask, I promise." But then she would turn around and do it again. On Mother's Day, my girlfriend and I attended dinner at Mum's. We were sitting in the living room and my mum goes to ask my girlfriend about the scar again, this time with a bigger audience because the whole family was there. My girlfriend said she'd rather not talk about it, but mum kept cornering her and kept asking her in a yes-no form. I was sitting next to my mum and I forced a loud fart in an attempt to take pressure and attention away from my girlfriend and get mum to switch her focus to something else. I was like, whoops, and the family started laughing. Mum turned to me and gave me a nasty stare. It got awkward, I'm not gonna lie, but I was desperate and I couldn't really yell at mum to stop and start a fight on Mother's Day, so I thought of doing this instead of making a scene. She pulled me into the kitchen and scolded me for what I did, after I admitted that I did it intentionally. She called me childish and said that if I didn't want her to bring up my girlfriend's scar, then I should have said. But I did, I swear, like 100 times. Anyways, my girlfriend and I left, and my girlfriend couldn't stop laughing in the car. Unfortunately, my dad was upset too, saying I behaved poorly and childishly in front of the extended family, and he told me to grow up. So, am I the butthole? Well, hey, I can think of a few less embarrassing ways to get someone's attention, but look, it worked, and you're not the butthole. I love it, actually. It's kind of crazy. You're using your butthole to not be the butthole. That is unbelievable. Am I the butthole for arguing with my husband's doctor and acting like a Karen because they wouldn't listen? My husband has a sore foot. No injury or medical condition that would explain the pain, but he hasn't been able to walk properly for about a week. Being the absolute pain in my butt that he is, he's refused to go to the doctors until today. Apparently he preferred to just pop paracetamol and complain to me. It's gotten progressively more swollen and misshapen looking, and today it's got a funny colour and he can't put any weight on it. So I called our GP, who has sent him to the walking clinic at our local hospital. We finally get seen, and the doctor refused to even examine it. He told him without even looking at the foot that it was a sprain and he wasn't going to prescribe him any painkillers, so not to ask. Then he started demonstrating some kind of exercises that involved going up and down on tiptoes and flexing the toes. I asked if he would please just look at it, as it's gone nearly black in some spots and looks similar to how my wrist looked when I broke it a few years ago. He huffed at me and asked where my medical degree was from. It put my back up and I demanded to see another doctor or his senior. I was the butthole here because it wasn't me being treated, so I get he thought I was a pushy cow. Husband wouldn't say boo to a goose in medical situations though, and he would have accepted the doctor's instructions without any questions about actually needing to be examined. The doctor left, and we heard him outside the cubicle telling the senior doctor that they have a confrontational spouse who thinks her WebMD searching qualifies her to instruct real doctors on how to practice medicine. He also states that he suspects my husband of exaggeration to get opiates. By the time the other doctor arrives, I'm seething, and I lay out exactly what went on, and explain that I only want someone to look at the foot before sending us away. He looks. Cue x-rays, an MRI, the good painkillers, and a walking boot casting with potential to need surgery because he's got 7 stress fractures in that foot, probably from running. Admittedly, they were worse than they needed to be because he didn't get any treatment when it first started to hurt. Then a second doctor and someone from the hospital admin come and apologize for the first doctor and ask if we want to make a formal complaint. So I did, because the outcome of his not listening to the patient or family could have been worse. My husband, though, didn't. My husband said later that the first doctor may well get sacked because of me complaining, and I should have left it because no real harm was done. So was it a butthole move to complain? I don't usually have Karen tendencies, but he was just so patronizing and dismissive, and I kept thinking, what if it was a young mother with a sick baby and he dismissed that? Not everyone would stand their ground, and there could be some really serious consequences. No, you're definitely not the butthole here, and you're also not a Karen. In my opinion, Karens are people that complain about things that do not need to be complained about. Whereas in this situation, you're complaining about a real health issue, and you're right, if you hadn't complained, your husband wouldn't have known he had 7 stress fractures. I couldn't agree more. If this doctor is doing this with your husband's foot, imagine what would happen if it was something really, really serious that could potentially endanger someone's lives. It's bad practice from the doctor, and it's good stuff from you, definitely not the butthole. Am I the butthole for going off on my wife after she made a sex sign to keep my mum from knocking on our bedroom door? So, I've been married to my wife for 4 years. We have a medium-sized apartment. For the last 2 months, my mother has been staying off and on in our guest room. My dad recently passed away, and it's hard for her to live in their house alone, so I've been letting her stay with us. My wife and her have never particularly got along, but I expected her to understand why it's important to me that she overlooked this just for a little while. I mean, she lost her husband of 40 years. She's fragile, and I really want to be able to do what I can to make her feel better. My mum's presence has changed our routine a little bit, mainly our nighttime routine. She'll usually come knock on our door to talk, and my wife hates this, partially because it interrupts our intimacy. Usually, when she's over, we just don't make love. Now, this past week, I noticed my mum hasn't been coming in at nights, so we had normal nighttime habits. Yesterday, my mum pulled me aside and told me that the sign I let my wife put on the door at night was disgusting and not something she ever needed to know. She also said that she was very hurt that I don't want to speak to her since I'm all she has left now. I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. She said the sign about sex. I still had no idea and talked to my wife about it when she got home. She admitted to it. She said that she made a sign to keep my mum out of our hair at nights. On the sign was written, "Please do not disturb unless you want to see me screwing your son." She thought it was funny and necessary, but I was mad about it. I took the sign, crumpled it up, and tossed it in the garbage. I then went off on my wife about how inappropriate and embarrassing this was. She told me it was my fault we needed this, and it's just a joke. I slept on the couch last night, and she is still angry at me. So, am I the butthole? Yeah, I guess the sign's quite funny in a crude way, I'll give you that. But in this context, knowing full well that your partner's mum's husband has just died and she is left all alone, a partner of 40 years by the way, that's just horrible, I'm sorry. Suck it up. Like, you can't have sex for a week or 2. Deal with it. It's not the end of the world. Come on. This is just throwing it back in her face. And yeah, it's horrible. You know what's crazy is that on Reddit, this is probably the first time I ever disagree with Reddit. Everyone on the comments is saying that you, OP, are the butthole. Like, you shouldn't have gone off on your wife and you should set boundaries with your mum. I actually fundamentally disagree. She's been staying at your gaff for like 2 weeks. Can your wife not just deal with that for a couple of weeks? It's not the end of the world, is it? Be nice to someone whose husband of 40 years has just died. Come on. Okay, sorry to go on about this, but I'm just reading through the comments to understand if I'm just in the wrong here. Some people are saying that your mum could come and talk to you at any other point in the day and it doesn't have to be at night. That I agree with. I'm not going to lie. But showing some compassion to a woman who's just lost her husband of 40 years, surely that's the easiest thing to do. Let me know in the comments. Interested to hear your thoughts. Am I the butthole for not waking my husband up for his 5 a.m. walk? So, for the past month, my husband has been waking up at 5 every morning to have a walk. These walks would take about 2 hours. A quick side note to mention that this is new. He's not trying to lose weight, he's pretty thin, he's not athletic by nature, nor has sports interests or hobbies. In fact, he used to hate doing any type of sports. I'm happy for him, since it's an overall positive thing. But yesterday, he came home in the evening after working for long hours, then stayed up late playing on his phone. I went to bed at 10 after getting done with the mess and everything. I woke up to him the next day, yelling at me at 7 a.m, asking me why I didn't wake him up for his 5 a.m. walk. He said he missed it, and I'm responsible for that. I was so confused. I said that first of all, he always wakes up by setting his alarm. Why should I be expected to wake him up this time? He yelled that he forgot to set his alarm. I said, so what? It's no big deal. It's not like he missed an important meeting or something. But he got more angry and said that those walks help improve his health and restore his energy, helping him feel better. I made a comment about how missing one walk won't hurt, but he unloaded on me, yelling about how I was trying to prevent him from doing his hobby for some unknown reason. I told him he was sorely mistaken, even though I admit that those 5 a.m. daily walks around the Veterans Park are weird, but also his reaction, I really thought it was over the top. He stormed off and went to the shower, saying I'd ruined his entire day. When he got out, he started avoiding and ignoring me. Even when I talked to him directly, he went to work and refused to respond to my calls. Really, I'm at a loss. Like, maybe it was something I said about his walks, but I really don't know. He's sulking non-stop as of now, and I'm literally about to lose my mind. Guys, am I the butthole? Yeah, this is the easiest not the butthole I've ever seen. I'm sorry. Your husband is the one walking at 5 a.m, not you. He usually sets alarms, not you. Obviously not your fault. It's a bit embarrassing actually. He's clearly just taking out his anger on you because he failed to wake up. Embarrassing on his behalf. Set an alarm, pal. Not that hard. Am I the butthole for showing the kids what their dad did? My husband was staying at the hospital for some health issues. After he got out, he started wetting the bed every few nights. We talked to the doctor about it and they gave us meds, but they take time. So they suggested that my husband use adult diapers temporarily. He said no, and since he's too sick to do anything, I'm the one having to clean up every time. I grew tired of it. He just kept wetting the bed and not even considering diapers. Yesterday morning was my final straw. I saw that he'd wet the bed again, and I just kind of went off. I kept talking, but it's like he wasn't hearing me at all because he just kept staring at the wall. Our kids heard the fuss and came in asking what was going on. I showed them the state the bed and sheets were in and said, "See, your dad keeps wetting the bed and throwing a tantrum when asked to wear a diaper." They stared, and my husband looked shocked. He had them leave the room, then said I shouldn't have done that. In my defense, I wanted to defend myself because I thought it was unfair when the kids accused me of yelling at their dad for no reason. He said I humiliated him in front of the kids and made him feel terrible. I told him he could be less embarrassed and feel less terrible when he stops wetting the bed like a child. He started crying, saying he's struggling with his health and said that I was being cruel and descendant towards him. Now I'm trying to turn the kids against him as well as shame him in front of them. My sister visited, and when I vented to her about it, she said she understood, but I was still in the wrong for getting the kids involved. I'm feeling conflicted on whether I did the right thing, maybe to get him to understand how this has been affecting me as well. So, am I the butthole for this? See, this one I'm not sure about. I feel like everyone kind of sucks here a little bit. On the one hand, your husband is in the wrong here. Look, suck it up. It's embarrassing, I get it, but wear a diaper. Or don't wear a diaper, but go and sleep in a different bed and clean your own sheets. Like wetting the bed often and then having your wife clean it up, that's very, very poor. I say all that. On the other hand, I don't think, OP, that you had to get the kids involved in this. I do agree. It's embarrassing enough for him, but you could have just said to him, one-on-one, spoken to him and said from the heart how bad this is making you feel and how difficult you're finding it. I don't think you had to get the kids involved. What do you reckon, guys? I kind of feel like both parties could and should have handled this a little bit better. Am I the butthole for walking out of the airport when I saw my husband's mum standing there with her luggage? I am a 30-year-old woman, and I don't have the best relationship with my husband's mum. Since day one, she tried to make remarks and compare me to her. She then tried to get on my good side and started overly praising everything I do, sometimes even copying me, like that one time when she literally dyed her hair purple just like mine. And when everyone pointed out how ridiculous she looked, she actually blamed me and accused me of trying to make a joke out of her. So, anyways, my husband and I took 2 weeks off work to go visit some places out of the country. Tourism, in other words. The thing is, I was the one who saved up for and arranged the trip. My husband was responsible for booking the tickets. My husband's mum wanted to come along and threw temper tantrums when I said no. She called, texted, sent people to talk to me into letting her come, even threatening to call the police and make some complaints up to get us to stay if she can't come. My husband said we should just take her, but I told him he was wrong to tell her about the trip in the first place. He gave me an ultimatum. He said he wouldn't go if she can't come, and I told him I'd gladly call his bluff, which made him take back his words and say, "Fine, I'll tell her to stop it because we won't take her." From then on, things on her side got quieter, suspiciously quieter. The day of the trip came and we got to the airport at 2 p.m. My husband was walking ahead of me and was looking left and right like he was looking out for someone. I asked him, but he didn't respond. He led me to the waiting area, and the first thing I saw was his mum standing there with her luggage. I froze in my spots. I felt a cold wave washing over me, and I was fuming inside. Her and my husband hugged, and that is when I quietly turned around and started walking towards the exits. My husband followed me, shouting at me to stop. He tried to stop me, but I told him off the harshest way possible. He tried to say I was overreacting and that his mum was there anyway and I should let it go and not mess the trip up for us. I told him that he and his mum could still go, but that I was going home. I went home and sobbed into my dog's fur for several minutes. It turned out he booked her a ticket without me knowing. An hour later, he came home yelling and raging about how pathetic and spiteful I was to walk out, go home, and ruin the trip last minute. I told him he caused this to happen. He said that I was being so hard on his mum, it was ridiculous. I just refused to fight anymore. But he kept on berating me. Then he called my family to tell them that the trip was cancelled because of me. My family said that I shouldn't have ruined it for myself, and I should have sucked it up and done my best to enjoy it. Did I really overreact? Are you kidding? Overreact? I would have reacted even stronger than you. Sorry, you're meant to be going on holiday just with your partner, you know, a couple's holiday, and out of nowhere, out of the blue, his mum is there? I can think of nothing worse. Listen, his mum is bad enough. I think we can all agree. But the fact that he has secretly invited her, saying to you, oh, don't worry, she won't come. Sorry. Like, what a joke of a man that guy is. The reason you're sobbing so much when you get home, in my opinion, is less about the holiday in isolation and more about the fact that you're now questioning whether you need to be with this man or not. Sorry, that's just what I think. In my opinion, I'm long gone. My parents decided to cancel my 14th birthday party to accommodate my spoiled younger brother. Then they reinstated it when I told everyone at school. I am a 20-year-old man, and this happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me. He was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he was 4. But other than that, he seems very normal, just unbelievably spoiled. And he used to get his way a lot. And by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he also had to have. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that wasn't a shared item. And anything he had that I didn't, he'd rub in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else I'd have it taken away. Which it was, a lot. When my aunt found out, after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my brother on one of her visits, she let loose on them for such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left. But they didn't make me give it to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my brother. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him. Even going so far as to outright state that he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable my brother the way they'd have liked at those parties, and were actually kicked out of a few for trying that. And because of that, other kids at his school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that I got to have about me, because otherwise my parents forced my life to revolve around my little brother. In the year prior to this story taking place, my parents ended up paying more attention to him the entire time of my 13th birthday. And they even asked me if I'd let my brother blow out my candles for me because he was upset and pouting. I refused that because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, until my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again, stating how much she'd noticed how my brother gets nearly everything between the two of us just because he's autistic. My parents got no support from anyone else there other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out my candles, and because he didn't get his way, he tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite. But my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance, then scolded him till he ran to my mum in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there, and then promised to never ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt then took over coordinating everything from that point onwards. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents sat me down and told me they were still gonna get me some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively cancelled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I could not believe they were doing this to me, and they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So, at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counsellor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration and empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me, and all of this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people, but that didn't stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded just for being upset that my birthday was cancelled for no good reason. Now I guess that made it a lot worse, because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents of other kids in my school, called them up or sent them Facebook messages basically saying, "What the heck is wrong with you?" Suddenly, I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology though. My dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still cancelled because nobody said anything about it. And my brother thought it hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favourite restaurants. They then started claiming it was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing the surprise party to try and save what little of their reputations they had left. I'm pretty sure they actually had to pay through their nose that day to just accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favourite restaurant that had a small arcade, and I even got the PS4 game system I'd been jonesing for at the time. I could tell that pretty much none of it was planned and bought last minute because my dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of his wallet. My brother, of course, made a huge fuss that I got a surprise party. But with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mum and dad finally put their feet down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a time out for the first time since he was a toddler, and my mum had to stay with him to make sure he didn't do anything crazy. He did try several times to run to the cake or stack of presents. Who knows what he would have done were it not for the fact that at least one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mum ended up having to remove my brother and herself from the party entirely and took my little brother to a McDonald's nearby so he could have fun in their play area. I heard later she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come out of the play place tube structure, and he only did so because he had to use the bathroom, then tried to run right back in again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while I still lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under their roof, my birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlour, a cake without my name even written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a new gaming system. I don't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure that the reason my name was never written on another cake was because my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party, and they couldn't put his name on any of my cakes or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me at all and not my brother was fantastic in my book, especially because just about everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my brother made a fuss, and my mum took him somewhere else to calm him down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my brother, but it was mine, and I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Now, little brother didn't like that and had a huge fit till my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. These guys are such enablers, what? When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they'd raised my brother so spoilt, because I wasn't there to help them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday, he went mental at our parents for not getting him a PS5. He's now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds or maybe even thousands in collateral damage during that rampage. He picked up a chair and just started destroying anything that was in front of him with it. My parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My aunt has also told me they confided in her that they wish they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. Yeah, as I said whilst I was reading that, your parents are by far the biggest enablers I've ever seen. That is insane. Look, fair enough. The kid's autistic and he needs special treatment. I understand that wholeheartedly. Trust me, I do, but not to this level. come on, not to the extent that one of your children can't even have their own birthday because of another one. That is mental. Listen, there's special treatment because your child has a mental disability, and then there's spoiling him rotten. I think the fact that your parents are now regretting how they brought him up and are wanting to send him to a military school shows exactly where they lie. Entitled neighbor wants her kids in my garden. I am so glad to have found this subreddit because I have a legit crazy neighbor with boundary issues. I am a 29-year-old woman. I don't have any kids, but my younger sister, who is now 16, has lived with me for about 10 years. And we've got a trampoline still in our back garden from when she was younger. The neighbour to the left of me has 4 kids and moved in a year ago. 2 weeks ago, Glasgow started getting really good weather. So the kids have been out playing constantly. Not an issue. They asked if I could let the kids use the trampoline one day. So I was like, sure, but only for a bit because I have friends coming over for some drinks. 7 PM comes and I ask them to go home because my 5 friends have shown up and we're going to be drinking. Cue the crying. They leave the garden upset, but hey, that's not my issue. They've been on the trampoline for 3 hours at this point. Their mum then pops her head out of her bedroom window and asks if they can stay in the garden longer. No, I'm not your babysitter. She's annoyed but drops it. Last week, I come home from some shopping and to my surprise, I found all 4 of the kids in my garden plus their younger cousin. I asked them to leave and tell them they can't just come into my garden without me there, and they didn't even ask, but they refuse. So I shout up at their mum and tell her to get them out of my garden. She says, oh, let them play for a bit. You don't even use it. Okay, but still, not your garden? Eventually we get into an argument and they leave. She's angry and shouting, saying I'm being a Karen, oh the irony, and I should let them in. I tell her not to ask again because the answer will be no. This though happened again the day after. All 4 kids plus their cousin waiting till I move the car from the drive and then heading straight into my garden when I'm gone. So I wake up this morning. I've since put a lock on the trampoline, just a small one on the mesh safety enclosure to stop them opening it up, cause I'm petty as frick. Plus it's a Saturday. I'm not working today, it's my day off and I want a long lie-in. But no, the neighbour decides that at 9 AM this morning, her kids are being fired straight out of that house with breakfast bars and a bottle of water and heading straight into my garden. So I can hear them from my window. I look out and tell them to leave. By the time I get downstairs, the mum has descended from her house and is trying to climb the fence between our gardens, shouting about how I used to let them use it and she's going to call the police for hitting her kids. Great, you do that. I'll be sure to show them the Ring camera footage, which coincidentally also has footage of your husband picking the lock open so your brats can use the trampoline. Wow, even the husband's involved at this point. Unbelievable. So long story short, the entitled mother sends her kids into my garden repeatedly, even after being told not to. She actually did call the police on me for harassment and hitting her kids, but ended up getting her own husband arrested for theft and housebreaking and criminal damage. Suck it, you female dog. Now guys, that is the end of that post, but don't you worry. I know what you were saying. Is there an update? Well, today you're lucky because there is. So here is that update. The main point, I guess, is that the day after this happened, I spoke to the police about the charges and asked if they could let them go. There was a charge of theft too, because the dad had moved tools out of the way and threw them into his garden, but they got thrown back in, so I wasn't missing anything. They initially asked me if I wanted the oldest kid charged. Now she looks a lot younger. I assume she was 10, but she's actually 13, because she was the one who climbed the fence first, then went through my drive to open the gate and let the younger kids in without having to climb over. I've since seen the dad at the local shop. He just sort of apologized quickly and thanked me for letting it go. I think the realization that his daughter could have been arrested was a wake-up call. I haven't heard an explanation though. Maybe he wasn't thinking about how serious it could end up. The mum, on the other hand, absolute crazy woman. I mentioned that she told police I had hit her kids, which is absolutely untrue, but she also decided to tell a couple of neighbours that I hit them. I actually had 2 of them ask me about this. She also put some sort of barbed wire at the top of her fence. What, to stop me climbing over? She's also chained her outdoor grill barbecue and dismantled the swing set I gave her when she moved in. and I thought I was petty. On a maybe related note, I had a visit from the SSPCA about animal abuse, even though I don't own any pets. They seemed pretty annoyed about being called out for a prank, so I don't know what happened with that. Well, I think that's pretty obvious. I've also been asked about my sister's involvement with the story. I just mentioned her at the beginning because I wanted to explain why I was 29 and had a trampoline in my back garden. She also wasn't home at the time because she has clubs on. By the time she got back in, it was all over. Well, you know, I'm 24 and I've still got a trampoline in my garden, if that's any consolation. Overall though, I've not had any more issues from it. The trampoline is now gone. The kids haven't really been out because it's been raining the past week. I rarely see the dad around as he works, and the mum spends her days in her own garden being the most obnoxious Glesga Ma you could imagine. Now, not entirely sure what Glesga Ma means. I asked my editor, Stevo, who some of you know is Scottish, and even he didn't know what that means. So yeah, none the wiser. I think it just means horrible Scottish woman. That's all I can guess, and it seems pretty likely. Gotta say, OP, legendary. Very nice of you to drop the charges. It's not petty locking your own stuff up, by the way. If you know that someone is coming without permission and using your stuff, yes, lock it up. What is going on here, by the way? It's like a whole family affair. You got the 13-year-old trying to like jump over and get around, open your gate. The dad's using bolt cutters. The mum's mental. This is just a typical entitled family. Unbelievable. And in terms of having a trampoline when you're 29 years old, they're fun. There's nothing wrong with that. My mum gave me up for $2,500. So, backstory. My mum and dad split up when I was roughly 9 or 10 years old, due to my mother cheating on my father when he was out of the country. He's a pilot. At the time, it was me and my 2 older sisters, one of which was already an aunt. So my other sister and I were left under my mother's custody due to my father always flying and not wanting us to go through moving all the time. As far as the details go, my dad not only paid my mum child support, but also paid off the house. Despite having little money to take care of himself, he paid my mum more than what he actually owed. Yet, my sister and I never saw that money. After the divorce, my mum turned to many things, sleeping around, gambling, drinking, and eventually meth. But that didn't last long due to my dad finding out and threatening to take us away. My sister practically became my mother, since ours decided to step down from the plates and I was too young to take care of myself. When my sister left for college, all the emotional abuse that she took ended up falling on me, which sent me into a loop. Due to my sister taking all the damage, I typically saw my mother as, well, my mother. My young brain didn't notice how often she didn't come home at night, or the lack of food in the house, or the constant weeks I'd wear one outfit since I didn't have any other clothes that fit. I didn't notice how unnormal this was. Heading into high school, it became more and more obvious this wasn't right at all. Yet I still loved my mother. We bantered and ate fast food together, and she was proud of my accomplishments. But she had her moments, dropping huge hints that I'm too boyish like my dad, refusing to let me cut my hair, pressuring me into wearing makeup, heels, dresses, convincing me I don't need therapy as my therapist at the time made me uncomfortable. They were one of those Christian therapists that made everything about God. Now, while I am Christian, it didn't help the conversation. And so on. Meanwhile, my dad met a woman and they fell in love. When she became pregnant with his kid, he moved her to America after my little sister was born and started a new family. I love my stepmom. She's literally the sweetest woman I know, and I adore my baby sister, and eventually my second baby sister. Over time, after spending many nights in their home, I came to realize how much happier I was at their house than my mother's. One day, I told my dad I want to officially live with him. At this point in time, I've noticed how depressed I am and how things aren't normal in my mum's house. When I told my mother this, she was deeply upset and cried, but she understood. Or so I thought. That's when everything went downhill. The text messages started. Sly guilt trips and remarks on how someone else convinced me to move out, that my father convinced me that she was the bad guy. The more these texts happened, the warier I became about talking to her. It got to the point where I'd cry after every conversation because I was so confused and lost. One day, she practically trapped me in her car in my best friend's driveway to tell me how my reasons for leaving were BS and that I clearly don't remember what it was like in that house. Cue my memory issues. But enough about that. Let's get to the good part, the custody case. Due to me being the last child between my mother and father, my dad no longer had to pay child support. Obviously, they go to court about this. Except my mum didn't show up for many, many hearings. When she did, she had this BS story about how my dad owed her a trash load of money because he never paid the full child support. How she felt pressured to believe him and trust him when he said he knew how much he owed her. He did. He calculated it himself and actually paid more than what was needed. So, if you're catching on, this fight was about money. Here's a fun little thing. My mum texted me maybe a month before this case started about how she desperately wants me to come home, how she'll do anything to get her baby back. That aged well, didn't it? Because one day, my mum stated that if my dad pays her $2,500, she'll give up full custody of me. My dad agreed to it and it was over. She gave up her custody rights for $2,500. It still stings. I'm still bitter and angry to this day about it, and this case happened years ago. I don't think my mum's aware I know the details about this case, as she very rarely reaches out to me, as if we still have a relationship, to tell me how much she loves and misses me. The thing is, I learned that my mum actually despised me after the divorce because I just reminded her of my dad. We have the same eyes and resting face. My mum just loves being the victim, and even tried to convince my sister she doesn't remember doing all the stuff I did to you. She even blamed my dad for her cheating on him and said so to my face. I haven't had a real conversation with her since Christmas, over the phone of course, and I haven't seen her in person since maybe before the pandemic. She texted me recently, all excited about a gift she got from my sister's unborn baby, and it sent a whole new wave of resentment towards her. I stopped trying long ago to have a relationship with her, as she doesn't try in return, and will continue to do so until she admits her wrongs, apologizes, and actually tries to be a freaking mother for once in her life. Until then, my only mother is my lovely stepmom. Okay, wow guys, we've just seen some truly astonishing parenting right there. Act as if you care about your child, but then in effect, selling her for $2,500. That's a level. Unbelievable. I'm just so happy for you, OP, that you are finally out of that house and you've realized after all these years how entitled and just terrible your mother is. But that is unbelievable. Faking as if you actually care and then taking 2.5k for your own daughter. Unreal. My entitled mum wants my future house for herself so I can inherit it later. I may have to remove this if certain people find it, or I suspect they have. Things are complicated right now, and I don't want my father knowing about this all, but I have no energy to make a spare account. With that out of the way, yes, for absurd as the title sounds, it is even more absurd when you live it. And I thought I'd never see or live through something like this, as entitled mums are not such a common sight where I live. But here I am, my own mum seems to be one, and I never suspected it. First of all, some background. I've been homeless for some time, after being kicked out 3 times. The first one was from my physical/emotionally abusive and alcoholic father's home. I was around 16. Second, from my uncle's home after he became mentally ill and very unstable. I don't blame him. I was 23 to 24 at the time and was taking care of him until he became too aggressive. And the third one, again, from my father's home after we all thought he'd changed. We were wrong, and this was around 3 years ago, when I was 24 or 25. This is relevant, as my parents were divorced since I was a kid because of my father's abusive behavior, and this comes to play in the story. The second important background part is that we never had any money, and all that came was obviously wasted on alcohol, drugs, prostitutes, and so on by my father, while me and my 1-year older brother were left unattended, starving, etc. But my grandparents, both, but in this case my father's parents, have tons of money and properties. If I attempt to count them now, I'd say they have around 10 flats bought through a business they own for legal and economic purposes. The thing is, my father and uncle had many fights with my grandparents, as they tell everybody they were abusive to them when they were young and so on. Now, I believe this, but I'm more inclined to think otherwise, as even after ending up in court after multiple assaults, my grandparents allowed them and us to live in 2 of their properties. And I'd say that those were almost luxury flats if they hadn't made them into big trash containers, sometimes literally using a room as a trash storage. Now on to recent events. So, after going homeless, my mother took my brother and I to her flat for a time. although I was forced to find another place or go to the local shelter whenever her boyfriend wanted time with her, as she didn't care if I had a place to sleep as long as she could have intimacy every few days. On perspective, this would have been a good start for an entitled parent story, but I'd say it's just a bad parent story, so I'll leave it at that. And don't get me wrong, she was never a bad mum, or not as bad as my father, but she simply kept her distance, as being a mum simply wasn't the life she wanted. So, after that, I took the initiative to make contact with our grandparents again, although everyone else disagreed, but I had to take the chance. It had been around 15 years since we were forbidden from contacting them, as all my family spoke of them as the devil or even worse. And again, they're not saints, but holy heck are they lifesavers. They rejoiced after I came back to them. They showered us with cash for anything we needed and found us a place to live, renting it and giving us cash every month, paying for my brother's final years at university and my studies too. Still, my mum didn't like most of it, although I choose to believe she was at least relieved she wasn't going to be forced to take care of us from there on. It got to a point where they bought my brother a flat too. So not only did we have a permanent home, but also he could have some property, as my father's home was supposed to one day be ours. I should mention here too that all these years, they still gave both my father and uncle a whole salary each, so they knew we could have had everything we needed. Sadly for them, they were wrong about that. Right then, now on to the story. Just another gaming night. I wished I could stop feeling like things could go back to square zero at any moment. So I start thinking. It's been a while since I was told I was getting my own flat, just so we could rent it and have our own money. I'm not fond of being a landlady, but perhaps I should help speed the process up and look for one, I think. So I do it. The next morning, my grandparents thanked me profusely for helping with it and taking the initiative. So we start visiting some candidates, some of which I go to with my mum on separate visits. Somehow, that starts a whole month of my mum telling me things such as, I don't like that place for you. That flat is in a very bad zone of the city. Nobody would ever rent it. I know which places you'd like better than you. I know what you like. This park is full of drug addicts. You're not living here. At first, and to be fair, those seemed like pretty innocent claims, but then they started becoming something else. See, she's always lived in rented homes, and she's the only one of her family to not have a home of her own. Her two brothers, her sister, and her parents have an owned home, so she somewhat hopes to inherit her parents' home after they pass away. This isn't happening though, as one of her brothers doesn't like her one bit and wouldn't give his part away, and she's got no way of buying it from him. But anyways, she starts giving us hints, requests, of living at my brother's flat. It's only got 2 rooms, but my brother is at uni elsewhere, so there's 1 free room, right? Well, no, because obviously he'd need a place to live after he finishes uni, or if anything happens, or a place to stay if he comes by. Mum starts telling us how, I'd do it for you, for the money, and we get along so well, you'll never notice that I'm even here. Except all that isn't true. She sometimes buys us groceries, yeah, but we don't ask for it. She's never given us any money aside from that, and not even before we went homeless, although she was obligated to because of the divorce. Well, I guess she did, but she always asked for it back. I guess I should tell a story or 2 of those times a different day. But going back to the story, things got convoluted. My mum at that time had spoke about her perfect idea. I gotta say it wasn't half bad on paper, but not in practice. She said something along the lines of, well, since you're getting a home of your own, why not, instead of renting it to someone else, insert racist slurs here, that would destroy it and not even pay, I rent it. But I live in your brother's house and you live in that one. You'd like it. We don't have to tell anyone. You don't like this place anyways, and the money would stay home. At first, I was confused. Like, why keep it a secret? She always does this with everything. Everything has to be a secret, but it makes things absurdly complicated. So I tell her, no, I can't rent you my house, only for you to live at my brother's house. He should be asked first. Besides, that would mean he'd have to live with me, so he'd have to know. Well, you see, this place is perfect for me. I can change this room for that one. The living room would be my room. I can make this and this other change, and I was stunned. She started telling me all the changes that she'd clearly been thinking about for a long time, at least since all those months back where she started telling us how a good idea would be for her to live here. Again, no, I don't think my brother would like living with you, and I won't let you live here without him knowing. If you want to do shady things, you'll have to tell him and grandparents, since they're paying for all of this. She started turning red. Not of rage, or perhaps just a part of it, but she always fake cries when she doesn't get what she wants. Oh, but they wouldn't understand. They tried to make me live in a dump back when they bought us a home, when you weren't even born. But they didn't. They changed the place. And although I think you deserve a home too for all you've had to put up with, it doesn't have anything to do with this. As I said, the place they ended up buying for them was almost a luxury one. You could see the beach from it and so on. Although it was never supposed to be their own place, as it was bought through their business, and we were supposed to inherit it when my grandparents passed away. It was a weird exchange. I didn't fully grasp why she was acting like that at the time, so I called my brother and explained. He told me she'd been insisting on the topic of living with me for a while, as if we were both going to live at his flat. But since he knows her, he also knew she was full of rubbish and told her more or less what I told her too. Days passed, and she seemed to start accepting how ridiculous it was to make a very convoluted plan of renting a home to live at the other one and then not telling anyone. So I proposed that we all talked about it on normal, decent terms. That is, she would rent my brother's home, since he isn't here for now, and he can choose where he wants to live, since there'd be free rooms at both places. My mum was visibly displeased, but accepted the terms. But then came more drama, after I found a perfect place for me. There? There are thugs and, insert racial slurs, living there. You're gonna get yourself robbed, assaulted, or killed. I was both shocked and rolling my eyes at the same time. All those places she spoke so badly about had changed, and I mean really changed, through the years, and are nowhere near like she sees them. Mum, the house is perfect, and whether I get it or not is none of your business. I've checked the neighborhood, the house, the community, and even the nearby park. It is not as you paint it. You're wrong, and I am not renting a home at that place. I was confused again. Of course she wasn't renting my home, and she was supposed to know that. Yeah, of course you wouldn't be, because I'd be the one living there, not you. Something to take into account is that my future home was going to have an extra room, so it was going to be bigger. This is important too, although you surely can see why already. Well then, if you get that place, then I am not renting at your brother's. At this moment, I felt rage boiling inside of me. What? Listen, we're going to rent it, whether it's to you or to some rando, and my brother has already agreed to that, as well as our grandparents. My mum was getting red again, but this time not fake crying. Whatever, I should have stayed with your father. That way I'd have a home too. She was so spiteful about that. You wouldn't even believe it. I felt a cold but burning inside. I tried to stay calm but also make her see that she just said something horrible. Excuse you? Could you say that again? I was very hurt, but mostly offended, because at that point I realized, despite possibly more things being in her mind, right then and there, she simply wanted a piece of the cake. She frowned, started her fake crying act all over again, as if I was the one who told her something horrible and not the opposite. So I rolled my eyes, sighed, and excused myself out of there. A few days after that, she came to my brother's house again, and we went for a walk, as she seemed to want to talk, and I wanted to have an easy exit out, just in case. Spoiler, I needed it, and I used it. I'll tell you what we're gonna do, she said. Oh god, here we go again, I was thinking. She was saying it as if it was the most brilliant idea she'd ever have. I'm gonna rent your house, but I'm gonna live at your brother's house. I sighed so hard it seemed exaggerated, but it came right out of my soul. Listen, I'm gonna do it, so I can. Now I don't know how this is called in English, or if this exists anywhere else, but here, there's an option to rent a place to someone and then offer them to buy it after the contract is over, at a reduced price based on what they had already paid, and she's referring to this. So then I can buy it from you. I was flabbergasted at her idiocy, and her courage to tell me a plan so stupid. So you're telling me you're gonna rent my house, but live at my brother's house, so you can then buy my house, still live at my brother's house, and my brother and I live at your house, that we could then maybe inherit? My mum was clearly insulted. What do you mean, maybe? I had the most obvious expression of, that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard, on my face, body, and hands, but she was glaring at me as if she just smelled a fart. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Now, I didn't yell, but I did raise my voice, and we were in the streets. I stopped walking, so she was forced to stop too, and people were staring. I wouldn't have normally wanted that, but I really wanted her to absorb and accept the idea of how ridiculous she was getting. What? It's not like I'm going to be here long anyways. Whenever I retire, I'm going to travel the world. I won't ever come back to this garbage of a city. Now she was raising her voice, apparently not getting how that made everything even more absurd. What do you even want my house for then? What if you get debt? What if I can't pay to inherit it when you die? Are you really not seeing how it makes absolutely no friggin' sense? She huffed and puffed. I would sign a contract. She said so as if she just made sense of all of it, in a victorious tone. Wait, so were you thinking of renting my brother's home without a contract? She was very displeased about me saying that. Most probably because she actually was thinking about it. Well, of course not. Who do you think I am? I just want the best for you. Alright, then explain to me how taking my house so you can own something without any way of knowing if I'll ever get it back and making me pay for it if I do so helps me. Please, go ahead. She was actually about to reply. I just roll my eyes again and start walking away. No, you know what? I don't want to know. Get your life together. Now, I wish that was the end of it, but it wasn't. I ended up not getting the place I liked so much, so we're still looking for some nice place to get. But my mum has kept telling us that she is going to move into my brother's house, whether we like it or not, and that it's all to help us. She doesn't seem to quite catch what no means, or that we absolutely don't want to live with her for a multitude of reasons. I fully believe she's actually going to end her contract with her current landlord soon, just so she can tell us there's no other way and make us feel guilty if she has to go homeless, despite having the money to rent any place she wants, and despite me having paid for months of the last 2 places she rented so she could move, because she doesn't like staying anywhere too long. Thus why she travels so much and wants to do so in the future even more. So I'm trying to make myself ready for when that happens. I guess I'll update you guys when or if I finally get my own home. Wow, where to even begin with this woman? When someone comes along with a plan that they've thought so hard about, you can tell, and it just makes absolutely no sense. What do you even say other than, that is ridiculous? What are you thinking? Yeah, I mean, it's so clear that she's just obviously trying to use you and your assets to get something for herself. But at this point, surely just don't even fake it. It's so obvious what you're trying to do. Just say, can I have one of your houses? And then just leave it at that. Like making up this whole plan of I'll live here, rent here. I'll actually then buy that house so I'll have something and then you can buy it back off me when I die. It's just, it's very confusing. That's all I'll say. And it really doesn't need to be. Just be honest. You'd quite like a house of your own. Again, guys, remember that she was very calm with leaving her own children homeless multiple times back in the day. Yeah, it wasn't her directly, but it was still her children. But now, no, she needs to own a property that one of you guys has. Strange is all I'll say. So there we go. That is going to do it for this one. Really hope you enjoyed it. And if you are still awake, then come on. It's time to fall asleep. If you want more content just like this right away, here are a couple more of my fall asleep movies, I guess, in the series to continue to relax to. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit this button and subscribe, and I'll catch you all later on with some more Reddit content.